All right, we're going to call the Star City Council meeting to order. It is Tuesday, April 7th, 2026, here at 7 p.m. at the Star City Council meeting chambers. Can you please all rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Yeah, so many people in here, better be loud. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, that was good. Thank you. All right. Is Miss Elizabeth? There you are. She is Miss Elizabeth Deems with Calvary Chapel Star is going to do our prayer tonight. Thank you so much. Is that green light on right there?
Yes. Can you
Okay.
hear me?
The floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. All right. Let's bow our heads and pray. Heavenly Father, we invite your presence into this place this evening. We come before you with gratitude. We thank you for being a loving God, one who never forsakes us and always works for our good. We thank you for this city council, our mayor, our city staff, first responders, and all those who work to make this place we call home such a wonderful city. We know that their authority has been established by you. We remember the Apostle Paul's teaching to the Christians in Rome that those in authority are first and foremost your servants, that honoring you and doing your will is their highest purpose. We give thanks for the way of service they have chosen to take up on behalf of the citizens of our city. And so we pray that you will be glorified through the decisions of the city council. We pray for wisdom, for strength, and for courage to do what is right and good for all of our citizens. May we act with love for the common good. May we be good neighbors, recognizing your image in every person here. As we begin this meeting, we declare that your purposes prevail. The Apostle Paul encourages us with this truth in Philippians 2:2. Then make my joy complete by being like-minded, having the same love, and being one in spirit of mind. Father, help us to be unified according to your word as we work together to fulfill your purpose. We commit to walk in grace, humility, and truth. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Ms. Deems. Appreciate that very much. All right, roll call.
Day.
Here.
Wheelock.
Here.
Salmonson.
Here.
Nielsen.
Present.
Hey, everybody's present and accounted for. Item number 4, guys, is our STAR report. That's just information, our STAR road report. That's information only. Nothing's changed on that since the previous year. So we're going to start out tonight with a presentation. We do have a Hometown Hero Award. We're starting this award here on a quarterly basis here in the city of Star. And we have a pretty special hero, Deputy Jimmy Kohler. Where are you at? You're up here. You want to come stand up here in the front so he can embarrass you a little bit? Read something, and then we're going to come down there and present an award to you as a council and stuff, okay? We had Mr. Mark Bryant. He's back there in the back, provided us with this information. He says, I'm currently serving as a bishop of a local congregation of Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The building we are located is the one on Main Street. This past Sunday, one of our local congregants entered our building and while in the foyer area had a very serious cardiac event. Due to the stress, he started to pass out and he reached out to the nearest wall to break his fall. In doing so, he fell up against the door and then onto the ground. Of all the doors he could have pressed up against in the building, he chose the right one. On the other side of the door was Ada County Sheriff Deputy Jimmy Kohler, who heard the commotion and came to investigate what had happened. He discovered this gentleman laying on the ground unconscious, and he promptly called 911 to get local first responders en route. He checked his vitals, and the man did not have a pulse, was not breathing, and was not responsive. He quickly began performing CPR while waiting for emergency services to arrive. It was a fight to save this man's life. Long story short, after what seemed like an eternity, this man started breathing again, and his life was saved. It was a miracle. Jimmy is a hero. So thank you, Mr. Jimmy Kohler, for all you do for our community. save. We also have a new plaque of David Paul that's going to have our quarterly. So let's come up here and we'll do a picture with you. So thank you. He's also a Star resident, so that's every police officer working for Star. You guys want to come up, Chief or Sheriff? We have Sheriff Clifford back here, Captain Watson. No? They're there. That's all right. You know what? In here, we'll get Ryan to do something. Oh. Stand back. Well, is this your family right here? Yeah. My wife Diane and my kids. Well, let me just thank you for allowing your father to serve our community, guys. That's awesome, right? It takes a special person that's willing to do that every day. Along with you guys back here. Oh, I'm sorry. Shut up. His family's here, his wife and kids. Where you been? You want to come up here?
Selective air unit, it's selective off.
Well, let them get their own picture first. They might want to shred out the picture. Oh, you want me out of here now? Yeah. Thank you. All right. Thank you guys for that. We're going to move on to our next item, which is a Week of the Young Child Proclamation. I'm going to read a proclamation tonight here. It's called Week of the Young Child. Whereas the Idaho Association for the Education of Young Children and other local organizations are celebrating the Week of the Young Child, April 11th through the 17th, 2026. And whereas these organizations are working to promote and inspire high-quality early childhood experiences for our state's youngest citizens that can provide a strong foundation of learning and lifelong success for Idaho's youngest citizens. And whereas young children thrive when they have access to developmentally appropriate, affordable, and high-quality early care and education settings. And whereas early childhood educators and those who work with or on behalf of young children birth through age 8 who make meaningful differences in the lives of young children in STAR deserve our thanks, support, and recognition. And whereas public policies that support early learning for all young children are critical to young children's futures and to the prosperity of Idaho families, communities, and our economy. Now, therefore, I, Trevor A. Chadwick, Mayor of the City of STAR, do hereby proclaim April 11th through 17th, 2026 as the Week of the Young Child in STAR, Idaho, and do hereby recognize that when our community invests in early childhood care and education, we also invest in our children, families, and the future of our community. So this next week, we're going to celebrate our kids. We should celebrate them every day, but especially this next week, right? So the next week will be the Week of the Young Child. Do we have anybody here from that organization? No? All right. We'll get this over to them. I signed that already. All right, we're on to our next item. We're going to do our fiscal year 2025 audit.
Oh, there we go. All right. I'm Jordan Swigert from Swigert, John and Associates. We did your audit for the year ended September 30th, 2025. I'm going to briefly hit a few things. If you have questions, please stop me. I'm more than happy to go in more detail. If you'll go to page 3 on the PDF, or up 1. This is our opinion on your financial statements. Well, it says, we looked at your financial statements, looked at your accounting software, looked how things were being recorded in there, tied it out to invoices, to bank statements, to lease agreements. And in our opinion, they're materially correct, meaning everything is being recorded in there and everything's being properly put into the system. From there, I will jump forward about 5 pages, say balance sheet on the top. Keep going 2 more pages. 1 more right there. Perfect. This is your balance sheet. This is kind of snapshot of where you ended the year. So you ended at September 30th with about 15.6 million in the bank. Going down the balance sheet there, property tax receivable, 22,000. That's just back taxes still owed. 260,000 of accounts payable. That's miscellaneous fees and other things that were just owed at the end of the year. Interest of $42,000. Other receivables of 96,000. That's franchise fees. 1.5 million due from other governments. That's sales tax you received in October that was for that last year. And then 47,000 of prepaid. That's insurance. That the insurance period is different than yours. Total liabilities 1.1 million. Most of that's accounts payable and wages payable. So for services and time worked in September, it was paid subsequently. But overall, ended the year with more cash on hand than you had liabilities. Any questions on that?
Okay. All right. Oh,
Perfect. I'll jump forward 2 pages to page 10. I should say statement of revenue on the top here. This is your income statement for the year. I'll just look at total. So in total, the city brought in about $22.5 million, spent about $22.3 million for the year, and then had proceeds from lease that 72. That's just accounting for some leases that were entered into. So bottom line, I've just scrolled down towards the bottom half here. Bottom line, you increased your reserve by just under $400,000. One thing I'll point out, your ending fund balance was about 16.5 million. A lot of times we'll look at that as a percentage of your annual expenses. We like to see at least a quarter of those expenses in reserve up to about a year. You're at about 3/4 of a year of expenses. So you're at a good range. You have a good reserve to cover expenses that they come up. You're not sitting on so much money that it's excessive. So I just wanted to point that out there. Any questions on that?
no. Any questions? Nope.
Hmm?
Okay.
All right, from there, I'm going to skip forward to page 24. Oh. Down. Right there, perfect. Note 13, leases. This is, actually, I'll start at note 11. This is just some of the long-term commitments that the city has. So we just like to point out, you do have some credit cards, multiple divisions. You have about a $50,000 limit on that. At the end of the year, 19,000 of it was in use. That was paid up off subsequently, but just something to be aware of. I'm going to note 13 leases. You did enter into a lease for a Ford F-150 during the year. So you can see it was a $72,000 lease. About 20,000 was paid off. So you have about 52,000 to pay off over the next 3 years on that lease. Other than that, there are no other long-term obligations the city has. From there, I'll go forward 2 pages. This just shows what was budgeted for the year versus what actually happened for the year. So you had some amendments. So the final budget is after all your amendments for the year. So you budgeted to bring in 14 million. You brought in 20, or about 6.4 million more. Most of that was from impact fees and for inspection fees that came in significantly higher than budgeted. On the expense side, you'd budgeted to spend 22.2 million, spent 22.2 million, about 6,000 over on a 22 million budget, pretty much spot on there. So overall, because of that increased revenue, if you scroll down a little bit, you'd budgeted to spend 6.9 million of your reserve, and instead you were able to increase it by about 400,000. From there, I'm going to skip forward again, page 32. Right there, perfect. These next couple, I'm just going to kind of point out what's there. These are great ones to go back. Page 32 here, this breaks out the revenue for the general fund to a lot more detail in showing budget versus what actually happened. So again, you can see building inspection fees, and then police and fire mitigation fees are really what drove that budget to receive more than was budgeted. Everything else was pretty reasonable. And then going to the next page, 33 and 34. And this just breaks out the expenses, showing what was budgeted versus what actually happened for the year. So some were under or over, but again, overall, you were pretty much right on in total there. Any questions on either of those pages?
Any questions? I guess I said no, but no, okay.
Perfect. From there, I will jump forward, page 38. So I'm just going to skip over. So in addition to just looking at the financial statements and the numbers, we also look at controls over financial reporting. There, really what we're looking at is more than one set of eyes looking at things, our bank reconciliations being done timely, our time cards being looked at. In doing that, we did note that you have one individual that's a signer on the account that also reconciles the statements. We weren't able to verify consistently for the whole year that that bank reconciliation was being looked at by someone other than the person preparing it. And where that person that prepares it's also a signer, it's very important that someone else is looking at that to look over the bank statement and make sure that's done. I believe those changes are being put in place, but for the year-end audit, that wasn't being done consistently. So that was the main finding that we had.
And we fixed that. I've signed every one of
Yep.
those
Good.
from last year.
So yeah,
So so the reconciliation, if you guys recall, our previous treasurer had us behind by like several years. And she's working diligently to get that done, got this done and got worked up to get this audit done on time. And so now we're all up to date every single month that she comes down with that. I reconcile them now and sign them.
perfect.
So you'll see a different story next
Yep,
year.
and I anticipated that. So yeah, I said, this audit's the first, I think, in 3 years that we're done before the due date. So that's always a great improvement. Yeah, you had till June, so we're good. But yeah, other than that, invoices that we looked at and everything else we saw where those were being approved and everything looked fine. So we didn't have any issues there. It was just the reconciliations. That was the only concern that we had. That's kind of a very quick high summary there. Any questions?
Any questions for him,
Mayor Chadwick,
Councilman?
not really a question, but because we're not asking questions, I just want to, I guess make a statement regarding, we look at these numbers so often that by the time it gets to the audit, we shouldn't have questions. At least that's how I look at it. So it's not like we're up here like, just, scroll through, let's move on. It's that you're presenting to us what we expect to see and what we've been familiar with.
Councilwoman?
And I would just add to that, that we have seen, 3 audits in the last probably year and a half.
Yeah.
And so when we first started looking at them, we were going through them, to really understand all the information. And so at this point, we've been looking at them for quite a while. So thank you.
And I will just say, since we made the change in the clerk and treasurer's office there about a year and a half ago, everything has gone so much smoother and better for us. So thank you to, that's our treasurer right there, Michelle. You guys want to know who she is? And then Shelley's our clerk right here. So thank you.
They do.
And Jordan obviously has been with us for a long time, so.
No,
Or
clerk and treasurer
what
were
do we-
great. They got us everything we needed
right.
timely. Everything we asked to look at was provided to us. So we had no issues. So if everything's good, then you'll want to make a motion to accept the audit report. We're actually good for a whole nother year this time. So
Yeah, who wants to make a motion? Anybody?
Mayor Chadwick,
Councilwoman?
I will make a motion to approve the audit report for 2025.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second.
I'll second.
We have a motion, a second by Councilman Nielsen. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Day.
Aye.
Sorry. Day. Wheelock.
Aye.
Salmonson.
Aye.
Nielsen.
Aye.
That motion carries. All right, Jordan's the only one that gets to leave this room right now tonight. But you can stay if you would like and see what real work looks like. Okay, all right. All right. We'll move on to the consent agenda.
Mayor Chadwick.
Councilwoman.
I move to approve the consent agenda consisting of 6A, the approval of claims, 6B, approval of minutes for March 17th, 2026 and March 24th, 2026. And 6C, the confirmation of appointment of Chris Gardner to the Historic Committee.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second that.
We have a motion by Councilwoman Solomon, a second by Councilman Wheelock. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Day.
Aye.
Wheelock.
Aye.
Salmonson.
Aye.
Nielsen.
Aye.
All right, that motion carries. Thank you. Awesome. We're on to the items that everybody's here for, the public hearing on our capital improvement plans. We will not be hearing the plan for the pathways. We need to table that one indefinitely. We're going to still work on that one from the questions, just so everybody's aware. And then we'll have to repost that one because we're tabling it indefinitely, just so everybody's aware. So I need a motion to table the pathways, CIP, and development impact fees indefinitely. Anybody?
Mayor Chadwick,
Councilwoman?
I will make a motion to table the pathway development impact fees and capital improvement plan indefinitely.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion by Councilwoman Solomon, a second by Councilman Nielsen. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Day,
Aye.
Wheelock,
Aye.
Solomon,
Aye.
Nielsen.
Aye.
All right, that motion carries. Thank you. Now we're going to move on to the City of Star Capital Improvement Plan Development Impact Fee Public Hearing for the Parks and Police. We do have quite a full house tonight, which is good. This is part of the process on here. I just want to tell everybody a little bit about how we're doing this tonight. I will open the public hearing here shortly. We will have our representative present our application. She'll have 25 minutes. I'm going to have the council can ask the applicant questions and staff questions during that time frame if they would choose. We do a public testimony on there, 3 minutes per person. However, we do have a representative for the BCA that has their own consultant. He's going to get 10 minutes, just so you're aware. Everybody else will get 3. The council may ask whoever's up here at the podium additional questions. That does not count towards your 3 minutes. Then we'll have our applicant or our consultant come back up and rebut that. I will close the public hearing after that, and the council will deliberate. When we're done with that, we will pass our third reading of the ordinances, hopefully, when we get to that point, if they approve an impact fee on any of these sections. However, we will not be doing the third reading of the ordinance for the pathways. So we'll just table that when we get there. Okay, with that said, it is 7:22. I'm going to open the public hearing, and I will ask the council if they have any ex parte contact or communication on the project.
No.
None.
Mayor Chadwick,
Councilwoman?
I would just like to say that I am friends with Jenna England, and she was on the impact fee committee. So I don't think it will affect my decision tonight, but I just wanted to make
And just to
that
clarify,
aware.
she's also a developer.
Yes,
in the
yes,
community
thank
as
you.
well. Okay. And then, oh yes, when you're up here at the podium, please state your name and address, please, for the record as well. All right, Ms. Christie, the floor is yours.
Good evening. My name's Christine Stoll. I'm with Clearwater Financial.
Why is this stuff not very loud?
Is it not loud? Does it need to be closer? How's that? Is that better?
I mean, I'm speaking into it. I can't hardly hear myself up there.
Okay.
Oh, am I in
My
loud? Okay.
address? Yes. Okay. I am at 2373 East Taconic Drive in Meridian, Idaho. Happy to be here tonight. This has been a really great project that we've worked with the city for about a year on. And so happy to come here and discuss the findings and talk about the capital improvement plans for police and parks, as well as the impact fees associated. Let's see. Okay. So it looks like when we, I'll just make a statement. It looks like when we sent over the PowerPoint, things got a little jumbled. So bear with me. But today, these are the things we're going to be talking about. We're going to look to demonstrate Idaho Code, which is the impact fee code. And so we'll talk about that. We're going to summarize growth projections and level of service standards, capital improvement plans. We'll talk about parks and police. We will review the maximal supportable impact fees associated, and then talk about the public outreach and stakeholder input that has happened, as well as outline implementation steps for this project. So I wanted just to start by indicating that development impact fees are not a tax. They're a one-time fee that is associated and assessed to new development to help pay for the increased demand on public services and other things such as parks and police. It's not a new tax, and it is paid for at the point in which a building permit is pulled. So why is the City of Star interested in adopting or updating? So they currently have parks impact fees, but they do not have police impact fees. So why are they wanting to adopt? So we'll talk about the growth in just a minute, but STAR's growth has been tremendous in the last 4 to 5 years, which means an increased service demand upon services, infrastructure, and so forth. So impact fees are meant to help pay for the growth in which they are affecting. So what we do is we look at how much of the growth, what the percentage is, and what is associated with the growth to come up with some impact fees associated. So we'll talk about that in a minute. And then how's it authorized? So it's authorized by the city council. You'll see there's a state code that has a whole, several requirements, many requirements to meet the impact fees. Okay, so in here, the report you've had in front of you for several months, and I have a copy as well. But Title 67, Chapter 82 in Idaho Code indicates these are the things, there's 40 or so of them in the code, but these are the highlights that are really important and that we're going to highlight today. And they are called out in your report in depth. Okay, so as part of the impact fees, the city did commission or bring together a impact fee committee, and they were established and convened prior to us starting this project. These are the folks that are on the impact fee committee. I saw several of them in the audience today. So the meeting between March 2025 and February 2026, the committee met 9 times. Members provided input and reviewed the report. So on 12/5, the committee 100% agreed upon the report that was submitted. It has since been revised a little bit, and the fees came down a little bit since 12/5, but in fact, the committee did agree. Okay, so in general, these are how we go about. So there's a process to the study and a process to calculating fees. The first is we have to look at your growth forecast. So we're looking at how many residents you currently have and how many are we expecting to be in the future. So it says that you need to look forward and plan for up to 20 years. So we looked forward to 2060, and you have a demographic report in front of you. But for the fees, we calculated for the next 10 years. So then we look at your service standards, your level of service, and what that looks at is what are the current services and amenities that the city provides now in parks and police. And we want to maintain those going forward so that the folks that are moving in and your growth still have the same level of service or lifestyle as why they moved here. So we'll talk about this a little bit more, but then we also look at your current investments. So what does the city have that they are using to create their level of service, and what's the total value of that? And then we come up with your project lists. So your CIP, capital improvement plans. So the city gets to determine what they want to do in the next 10 years. And that can be things that are impact fee eligible as well as those that are not. So it is a planning document for them. And then we will assess if it's eligible or not. So we'll talk about that. And then from there, we devise the maximum fee. So what is the maximum fee that can be charged per land use type, residential or non-residential? And that will be at the end of the presentation. And then this body gets to make the decision to adopt. So in general, we've had transformative growth here. I think you know that because you live here. But I just wanted to give you a few stats. So between 2000 and 2020, you had 80% growth from 2020 to 2024. So you had 9,000 residents added during that time, with an average about 2,300 residents a year. And then since 2000, you've had over 800% growth. So just enormous. And it's, you guys are a standout in Idaho for growth, which has made it a little tricky for you because it's really hard to keep up when you have that many people coming in and your parks and your police and infrastructure are not meant or not built right now for that many people coming in that fast. So the purpose of impact fees is to help you be ahead of that and to be planful and have growth help pay for growth. So a couple other things I just wanted to point out was that, and again, you got the demographic report back in May, so you've had it for a while. But we we forecasted low, medium, and high for the next 10 years on what we think your residents are going to be, and we chose the mid-range for this. We do anticipate that you continue to grow strongly. But because we don't have a crystal ball, no one can for sure say exactly what the growth is going to be. We chose the mid-range. One thing important to keep in mind is that when you, as part of this process, is you'll have an annual review of your impact fees, and that allows you to go back and look at what actually happened the year before. So did you have, the same type of growth? Did it go up? Did it go down? Are land prices the same? That sort of thing. And so that is part of the process that annually you'll review these. Okay, so again, we're going to talk about your growth forecast. So we're looking at a 10-year chunk, and we're looking at approximately, about 4,500 residents by 2035. So when we did our forecasts in the demographic report, they're in 20-year chunks, and we then took a midpoint so that we could, they're in 10-year chunks, and we took the midpoint to get to 2035. And we're looking at about 4,500 residents. And again, this is from the report. So right now we had, when we did this, 22,270 residents. We're forecasting about 45,816. So you can see the net growth, which is about 106% growth. And this is based on, we take census data. We also take Compass data, that is your regional group that forecasts and so forth. And so because your growth here has been so tremendous, we really put a lot of stake into your building permits, both here and regionally, as well as Compass data, and overlaid it on top of the census data. Because the census data wasn't going to cut it, because it's not normal, right, in a 10-year chunk. So that's where we came up with the numbers. And again, if you look in your demographic report, it's a pretty lengthy report, and it explains how we came up with all the numbers. So then when we looked at the proportional share between residential and non-residential, we found that about 90% of the units here are residential. In fact, in the Canyon County side, you do not have any commercial, or you didn't at the time. Right, so the commercial's primarily on the Ada County side, or is on the Ada County side. So we also looked, you can choose to dial down and say, okay, do we want to have, the different kinds of non-residential or residential? But what we, as a city, decided was that it really was, for the size of the city, probably not needed. So just residential, non-residential is how we're going forward and looking at how the fees apply. Okay, so again, this is just a recap. So you went from 11,000 to 22,000 in 5 years. We're looking at your mid-range forecasts. We're estimating 45,000 in 2035. Okay, so then next we look at your level of service. And so what we do is we're looking at, again, what are you currently offering? So what is the folks that live here, what are they used to having? So we're looking at your parkland, and we say that you have the current level of service is 5.05 acres per thousand. So what you'll see that we're using 5 acres per thousand residents in the report. And that is because the city's comp plan says 5, and the mayor and city staff agreed to use that. So it's a little bit below your actual current level of service that we're using in this plan. And then we broke out some things in the parks specific to your indoor rec center and your event center space, so that we could have a barometer, if you will, or a baseline of your current level of service, and it's by square footage. Then for your police staff, because you're going to need more police in the future, you're going to, we had a level of service of 1.044 officers per 1,000. And these numbers help us forecast out how many officers we're going to need in the future. We also looked at police stations space and looked at the current level of service that you have there, as well as police training center. So the police training center, we also used the sworn officer growth, which is going to be about 51%, 51.39% growth. And we used that when we were looking at the police training center. We did calculate it by square footage. And actually, when we calculated it by square footage, the percentage that was impact fee eligible was a lot higher than 51%. So the city staff used the 51% instead. Okay, so current, your level of service and current investment. So you have, what we do is we look at all your assets that you have. So we get your list of insurance and all the things, and we ask, hey, we ask your staff to give us the list of all your cars and your equipment and all of the things. And then we sit down and inventory those. So we looked at equipment, we looked at buildings, we looked at vehicles and such. And then anything that had a useful life of 10 years or more, then we used for a level of service. There's plenty of things on the list that were not 10 years or more, weed whackers and all the things, probably 2 years, and they didn't make the list. But that is a basis of what we use to help establish the level of service. So the level of service is the relationship and the service to the service capacity and the demand. It doesn't necessarily say that it has to be a city-owned asset. And the reason why I bring this up is because in the report, we do talk about there's some leased facilities, and that is the way that the city has been able to offer those services at the rec center as well as the police station, is both of those are leased spaces. They belong actually to the fire district. But those spaces nonetheless make up level of service of current offerings. We also looked at the 10-year useful life for everything, and that included cars and equipment. So we looked at cars, both for parks, vehicles, I guess I could say, trucks and so forth, for parks as well as police. And the city has a well-documented useful life of vehicles, especially in parks. Some of them are 20 years old and still being used. We did not use depreciated value because depreciated value is an accounting term and an accounting function. It doesn't have anything to do with useful life. If you think about, if you have your own business or something and you buy a vehicle today and you depreciate it 100% for taxes, it doesn't mean that it's not useful anymore. So we do have the inventories that show how long each vehicle has been in use, and most, if not all, are over 10 years. In the police, we have several police cars that are one-to-one, if you will, and so they're not shared. We would expect that, and they are 9 years and counting. And we would expect for those going forward to be 10 years or more. And so we do have evidence of those lasting long as well. Let's see. Okay. So the costs associated with the calculations that would be in your capital improvement plans, you'll see that we have a cost for per acre. And a little bit later in the presentation, we'll talk about who we met with in regards to stakeholders. But at one of the stakeholder meetings on February 6th, the BCA Representative Jim Bring, the cost per acre of $185, and the city chose to use that number. There was also other research done that showed higher amounts. The city chose the $185. The development of park acres is based on the 4 most recent parks and the development of those. And so it's about 134, almost 135 an acre to green it up, if you will. And then building per square foot. So anytime they build a structure, the city did have recent bids for projects that were done in the last year that came in around 412. And the city agreed to just round it to 400. And I will tell you that I'm out, with my other municipality clients, and some of the bids we're getting from municipal buildings are about $616 right now a square foot. I know that there was some talk with the stakeholders that they thought 400 was high, but we also have to keep in mind that they're public works jobs, and so they have different requirements. Okay, so when we talk about our capital improvement plan, we have to talk about what's eligible and what's not. So capital improvement projects have to have a lifespan of at least 10 years. They also need to not replace anything. They can't be used for, so impact fees can't pay for anything that is staffing, operations, maintenance, replacement, or an existing deficiency. So let's say you have the roof on this, and no matter if you have growth or not, you're going to have to replace the roof or paint this building. That is not an impact fee eligible fee, something you can pay with. It has to be something that is growth related. So, and it has to be something that you're just trying to keep the current status, if you will. So we want to make sure that the people that move in have the same amenities at the same level as the people prior. Okay, so when we are looking at your list, so the city puts together a list of all the possible projects they want to do in 10 years, and then we start asking questions. We put a core analysis on this, which means we're asking, is it a capacity expansion? Is it growth driven? And is it required to sustain levels? If so, then it gets to be a C, and that is fully eligible for impact fees. If it's an ongoing renewal, so it's a repair of something, like I just talked about, a roof or paint or something of existing facilities, then that is an O, and that's not going to be tied to impact fees. Raise the level of service. These are enhancements or upgrades beyond the baseline service, and generally they're not eligible. And then sometimes we have a mix or an ensemble, so projects combining growth, renewal, and/or upgrade elements, and we give that a percentage, and it can only be paid for the growth percentage. And you'll note in your report that each one of those projects has a percentage, and it clearly states what is growth related and what's not. Okay, so what will the impact fees pay for police? So these are just some examples that are on the CIP list: land acquisition, police stations, a training center, vehicles, and protective equipment for officers. And again, these would be the new officers, not the existing officers. So we're not able to replace anything that we currently have for existing officers, but it would be for the new ones that we anticipate hiring for growth. So here's the CIP. It's kind of hard to see, but you'll see kind of on the right-hand side in red, that is your eligibility score, if you will, percentage-wise on how much you can pay for. And that is directly after the assessment and how much it was growth related. So anything that is not 100% has an allowable, you'll see on here, an allowable impact fee funding and other funding. Anything that is not impact fee related has to be paid for by other funds. And we'll talk about those in just a minute. Okay, and so parks, what will the impact fees pay for in parks? And again, land acquisition, green up costs, maintenance vehicles, one-time maintenance vehicles, or equipment for a new park. So not ongoing, you were not replacing mowers for the current parks, it's just for the new parks. And a shuttle bus for recreation programs. So here is the CIP. It's a little bit hard to see, but it's in the same form and fashion. This is also in your report. Okay, so here's the maximum supportable fees for both parks and police, broken down by residential and non-residential. You'll note that per unit, residential unit would be $5,869.70 for parks. Your current fee is $2,050. So there is a change of $3,819.70. Police, you do not have impact fees, and so therefore the residential cost for police would be $1,321.65. For non-residential, so this would be your commercial properties, they're going to say 60 cents per square foot. For a total of $7,191.34 for both combined, which I don't have the math for the change, but it's about $5,000 from what your current impact fees are. Okay, so participation, non-growth portion of expansion. So you'll see required amount. So these are the dollar amounts of the CIP projects for parks and police that were deemed impact fee eligible. The discretionary is the other amount that the city will have to come up with in a different funding source, and then what the totals are. So we've got about $88 million worth of projects over the next 10 years. You'll note that we have reviewed the current capital offsets or other revenue sources as Idaho code allows for. So property taxes, so you know, for the audience, 100% of the property taxes fund police. There are no current applicable realized grants. The city has no outstanding bonds or debt service. There's minimal user fees related to recreation programs, and they run the program. State sharing revenue funds general operations where property taxes do not, and there is no current committed land or funding donations. Okay, so public outreach. So March 2025 to April 26, 2026. Here are some things that we had put out to make sure that the public was aware that this was happening, including an open house that we had. We also had stakeholder review. So the initial report was published in December 2025. We did receive public feedback that was emailed in and or mailed in. I think I forgot a couple of people on here, but there were several independent developers and builders that provided feedback. And we also did meet with BCA representatives January 5th and February 6th. As a result, the land value calculations and other changes were made to the report, and the report was updated on 2/2 and also 2/19, and 2/19 is the most recent. So a minute left really quickly. As part of this, you have annual reviews that are required. So the group will meet, so the impact fee committee will meet every year and re-look at, again, the growth and so forth as what happened the previous year. Impact fees have to be completely redone every 5 years from tip to tap. So no matter what, you're looking at it annually and then you're redoing it every 5 years. Impact fees need to be given back if they are not spent within 8 years. And that's first in, first out. They will be collected and tracked individually, and that will be part of your annual update. And then implementation timetable. So we already had the advisory committee review it. We're at the public hearing. Next would be to adopt your CIP and your fee ordinance. You have 30 days after the adoption to be able to have the impact fee start. Then we will have your annual impact fee committee review, report it in January, redo it every 5 years, and return any spent fees after 8. How's that for time? Woo!
Good job. I just want to, just so everybody understands that our fiscal year runs October 1 to September 30th. It usually takes us the month of October to get stuff together. So in the November, December timeframe, our impact fee committee will start meeting starting this year in just a few months. And then in January, they'll provide a report to the council, and then we'll go from there on if we need to do updates and whatnot from that. So anybody that's in here on the impact fee committee, just know you're going to be meeting in November or December timeframe on there. Okay. Any questions of Christy right now? Nothing? Wow. Okay. And all right. So we are going to start. Miss Daphne, did you want to speak?
Was hoping
After who?
There's a whole list of people that are against.
Oh, you're on the against?
No, I mean, neutral. So I was hoping to talk after I heard some people. If that's
That's fine. Yeah, we got lots on the against, so we got plenty of willing takers. Let's see, is it Dylan? If you come up here, sir, state your name and address, please, for the record, and spell your name for me because you wrote that thing so small I can't even see it. So,
It's a curse.
oh,
Yeah.
engineer?
What was that?
Are you an engineer?
No, I'm not smart enough for that.
Okay.
Sorry, my name's Dylan Ludlow, Dillon Ludlon, and Ludlow is Ludlow.
Thank you.
The address is 1059 East Iron Eagle Drive over in Eagle.
Okay.
So I'm a developer with Cedar and Sage Homes. We're local here in the Treasure Valley. We have multiple projects currently going on in the city of Star, and we've got a few in the hopper that are on the near horizon here in the city of Star. And one question, if it's somewhere that I've missed, I apologize. One question is, how are these impact fees impacting existing projects, or is there a cutoff for projects that would be grandfathered in for the old impact fees? When we initially are analyzing a project's viability, we're obviously taking into consideration the city's current impact fees and not guessing at what the future impact fees might be. And there's an impact on that. I'd also like to make a point too that we are we obviously love City of Star, obviously want parks and the police and city services to continue to grow responsibly with the growth of the city. We definitely would be open to working with the city as opposed to simply paying impact fees outright. I know there's existing infrastructure that needs attention. There's future infrastructure that needs attention. And I'm sure there's other people that you've already talked to that I'm sure that are smarter than me who have laid out ways in which we could work together to, like I said, improve infrastructure in Star without necessarily altering impact fees. As that cost, I mean, everyone here either personally or has someone near to them that's personally been impacted by the increase in housing costs. There's people that have grown up here who are now in a stage where they're looking around to buy a house and raise their family here, just like they were raised here. And obviously that has proven to be more and more difficult as these housing costs have increased. Obviously, the more housing we can provide, the lower those costs can be mitigated at least. And so I just wanted to put that out there as food for thought. And then again, that question I had at the beginning of, I don't know if there's a cutoff for projects that would be grandfathered in with those old impact, or as we're raising impact fees. I don't know if there's old projects that would be grandfathered in and allowed to pay previous impact fees. So
I'll have to ask Chris on that one. But you guys don't mind me, I'm going to probably converse with almost every one of you on this whole thing. But let's just talk about that for a minute. We do have 6,300 houses that have been approved that the building community has yet chosen not to build.
Mhm.
So how long does that last to not pay for those impact fees? My question is that,
Oh, that's a good question.
right? I mean, so it goes back and forth both ways.
Yeah, of course. And it's on a case by case basis, right? I can't speak to everyone else. There's various financing issues that may arise. Cost of construction may have increased and now that project is no longer viable. And so they're adjusting. I don't know. I can't speak
I know, it's
on
just
a
a lot.
project by project
And
basis.
so everybody's aware, I'm from the commercial construction trade. I
Yeah, yeah.
I understand it.
Yep. And so I don't know where the cutoff would be. I mean, I'm not the one writing the code or passing the law there, but I would just say, I don't know what the cutoff is. If we've already got a preliminary plat in there, if we've already had a preliminary plat meeting, I don't know where the cutoff is, but it makes sense to me that if we're already underway, at least, that we would be allowed to pay previous impact fees as opposed to paying the new impact fees, whatever that cost increase happens to be.
So how do we handle the police impact fee then that has not been there and you're creating an additional need for that service?
Sure. I think that there's an immediate need, obviously, and there's a short-term solution to meet that immediate need in raising impact fees, right? There's a long-term growth perspective of how can we partner with developers to maintain existing infrastructure, add additional infrastructure, and free up funds that would then allow for, exactly what we're talking about, additional infrastructure for police, fire, parks, what have you. So I get the immediate issue. From a long-term growth perspective, if we're talking about lowering housing costs or at least maintaining where housing costs are, which then allows and drives residential growth, which then allows and drives commercial growth and stimulates local economy, then it looks more like partnering with developers on infrastructure improvements as opposed to raising impact fees now so that we can take care of the problems. And again, I'm not saying that it's an easy situation that anybody here is in, but that's kind of the perspective on that.
So we have a policy already in place that if you do partner with us with impact fees in place, that we give you a credit back. So you don't pay those.
Sure. I don't mean impact fee specifically. So for example, there's roads, there's water, sewer, whatever, what have you that either.
Well, no, I get that. But for us, road sewer, we don't deal with. City of Star is not, that's a separate district.
Sure.
For us, it's police and fire and park impact fees only. So if we're talking infrastructure improvements, it'd be on these two items.
I'm using that as an example.
Okay.
We can expand that to whatever that would need, whatever that looks like, you know? All I'm saying is that from a long-term growth perspective and something that's sustainable and is going to drive the growth for the city overall, like you said, you've got a commercial development background, you know
Right.
that the commercial doesn't lead the residences lead first and the commercial follows in
Right.
behind that, right?
Yep.
Mayor Chadwick.
Councilman Nielsen. And thank you, Dylan, for standing up there and answering
Yeah.
questions, man. I
Yeah, no
appreciate
problem.
that. So,
Yeah, I'm going to pile on because you're so good at this interaction here. So I'm curious. You made some statements around, we've got a lot of growth coming and growth requires, so on and so forth.
Sure.
Like, I don't care if we have any more growth, honestly.
Oh yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
If you want to close the door right now, that's another thing
No,
too.
no,
That
I don't want to close the door either, but
Uh-huh.
like I'm neutral, right?
Sure.
And
So-
in this position, I have to be. So one of the things I hear all the time from people about all the growth that's coming here is how do we make sure that growth is paying for itself?
Mhm.
So if we don't ensure that the growth, the impact of growth is funded by the growth, what would you say to those people that then are paying for it in other ways and allowing the growth to come in without paying its proportionate share?
Sure. I would say, like I said before, I think that rather than it being impact fees, it lies more in partnering with developers in whatever area they might be developing. And so whatever that infrastructure looks like, if the developer's paying a percentage of whatever the financial need is and the city's paying another percentage of that financial need, now we can responsibly grow with the city. If you're in a position of just to address, hey, I just want the door closed behind me, I completely understand that sentiment as well, but there's still existing, I mean, if you go
Can you
around.
give me an example of where, like what trade-off would a developer make instead of paying that impact fee that would be proportionate?
Sure. Just as again, I know that this isn't you guys, it might be ACHC. I know there's private roads in the city too. But so for example, if there's a road that needs to be improved, I don't know what the cost of fixing the road is. Let's say the road needs to be widened and that section is going to cost $100,000. Then if you as the city come to developers and say, hey, look, normally the approval process takes whatever it is, 18 months, right? Instead of it taking 18 months, we're going to do the best that we can to shorten that window so that your project can get rolling faster. And in exchange for that, you're going to cover 50% or whatever the number is. You're going to cover $50,000 worth of that cost to improve the road. Now, all of a sudden, there's funding that the city needs to improve whatever that road is. The developer gets a shortened window in which it's dollars in, dollars out. And now returns are looking better for developers. And then the city, we're solving problems for everybody there, right? And if you're in a situation, just to address what you said, you're neutral. If you're in a situation where you have the sentiment of like, hey, let's just close the door, we're all good, we don't need any more development. I understand the sentiment, but the reality is if you look around, and it's to no fault of the city, it's simply a lack of resources. If you look around, there is existing infrastructure that either A, needs desperate need in maintenance, it might need repair, and it might even need full-on replacement. And if we're partnering with the city and developers, we can address all those issues, even if we're not going to, have this expansion mindset. But if we're just going to address what we already have and help take care of what we already have, that's another way that partnership could work as well.
Got it. Thank you.
all right. Any further question for Mr. Dillon? Thank you, sir, for answering the
Thank you.
questions. Appreciate it. All right, Mr. Adam. No, I'm actually going right in order. It's just you're the next yes. Let's speak.
Oh, I was a yes.
Yeah.
I don't know who
No,
put me.
no. On my sheet,
Oh, all right.
trade places for a minute if you want, and I'll speak in favor.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Mayor Chadwick, council members, for the record, Adam Capel, business address is 2973 North Eagle Road, Meridian, Idaho. I'm here representing Tresidio Homes and the Building Contractors Association of Southwestern Idaho. Here tonight with me is Carter Froelich. He's the consultant that helped prepare the independent analysis, so he'll be giving a presentation hopefully here shortly. Just want to be clear, in general, we do support impact fees, so we're not here opposing impact fees in general, but only when they're fair and equitable. We do believe in the principle that growth should pay for growth. We believe that it is. But what we cannot support are fees where new growth is asked to correct existing deficiencies or subsidize past underinvestment. So first, this study does not meet the standard of fair and equitable impact fees. An independent third-party review, which you'll hear more about here shortly, concluded that it's not compliant with Idaho law as written today, overvalues assets compared to the city's own financials, uses replacement costs instead of depreciated value, shifting the cost of replacement onto new growth. And it includes operating costs like leased facilities and capital assets, just to name a few of the numerous issues. These are not minor technical issues, they're major issues that create real problems. Second, new growth is being asked to fund things it shouldn't, including indoor recreation facilities where there's no existing level of service, leased park and police facilities, which are operational expenses, not capital improvements, and a number of assumptions that exceed current levels of service. Impact fees should be used to maintain levels of service, not expand them, and not fix existing deficiencies. Third, we do still have concerns over the process. While the city did technically provide time for review, the feedback from builders and stakeholders has largely been ignored. Reference was made to land and other changes. I'm not sure what other changes were made. I am aware of the land change. The statement that the advisory committee unanimously supported the study, I don't believe is an accurate reflection. I think there were concerns raised that haven't been addressed. We do want to be partners in this process, but that really does require meaningful engagement. Lastly, this does directly impact housing affordability. Every dollar added in fees increases the cost of a home, pushes buyers out of the market, and works against the city's stated goal of allowing families and children as they grow to afford to live here. You can't say housing affordability is a priority and adopt excessive or flawed fee structures. So we're not asking to eliminate impact fees. We're asking to pause adoption, engage in collaborative review, correct the issues identified, and get this right the first time. Again, we do want to be partners with the city. We want to support infrastructure and emergency service providers. But as it stands today, based on the data and methodology and the concerns, I can't support these fees. So thank you for letting me speak.
All right. Any questions for Adam?
Mayor Chadwick.
Councilman Nielsen?
Thanks, Adam. You said the replacement costs are used instead of depreciated costs. Yet the report that, or the presentation we just saw, and Idaho code clearly says that impact fees can't be used for replacement. Can you help me understand why you're honing in on replacement costs when replacement's not a valid use of impact fees?
I think that the statement was made that replacement's not used for a replacement is not a valid use of impact fees, but I think the report shows otherwise, that it may actually be using impact fees for replacement.
Can you highlight specifically where that is?
I don't have the data right in front of me. Maybe Carter, who's given our presentation, does,
Okay.
but this is where we would love to sit down and really engage in a transparent and meaningful dialogue.
Yeah.
The report's in front of us.
Okay. Second, you mentioned housing affordability. I can't speak for everybody up here, but I'll just say personally, it's not my responsibility as a member of the city council to worry about housing affordability. That may sound really callous, but as soon as the government starts messing around in market valuations, then it goes against my own morality, but I think it also goes against the capitalist society that we work in. I just want to put that on the record that I'm not making a decision here tonight, one way or another, based on housing affordability. That's not what we're here to talk about. And then finally, you mentioned that this, you've got a third party that's determined that STAR's report does not follow Idaho code. Can you tell me what that entity is?
The entity is Launch Financial Advisors, and Carter Froelich will be here to give a presentation.
Okay, and financial advisors, are they also legal advisors?
They are experts in impact fees.
Okay.
They've written the national policies for the National Association of Home Builders, and they've been involved in many impact fees over more than 30 years.
Okay. So I'll be interested in knowing very specifically how that doesn't comply. I also have the perspective that the purpose of this proceeding here tonight is to determine whether or not this proposal by the City of Star is compliant with Idaho Code, Section 67, Chapter 82, and anything else pertinent to that. And so I guess I'll leave it at that if there's other questions.
Okay. Any questions for Adam? I got some though.
Oh, lucky me.
Me and Adam, we've had some good conversations over the years.
We're usually friends afterwards.
We're friends after. But I just take offense to the transparency part of the deal. I just want to lay out a timeline here. December 16th, we were supposed to have this original hearing. At that time, you guys reached out to us about some concerns and we tabled that. And we met in January 14th with a 2-hour meeting with the BCA to discuss your concerns. And we did make some adjustments to that at your request, which came back when we came back in February and had another meeting, showed that your park impact fees went up based on what you asked us to do. And then you guys were concerned about our valuation model, which was the only things that really came up on that. And we waited until the February meeting to where you provided us with the properties that came out to the 185, which we use. So I think the transparency part of this is there. There is never going to be a way that you're going to be approving of the stuff that we are saying unless, in my opinion, you want us to wipe it off the board and for you to agree to it. I think we've been transparent and talked through this whole thing tremendously, a lot.
Yeah,
And
I
that's
think-
right, because we were supposed to also have this on our January 20th meeting. We tabled it again to February 17th, which we tabled again to March 3rd from your concerns. And then we decided we're going to hear it today. And then we pulled off the pathways one because of the concerns that you guys had too, to review that one. So I think we've been fair and very transparent on this, on not trying to rush these through.
Can I share a little bit from our perspective?
Yeah, you can give it for your perspective, that's for certain, but
I mean, to be fair, your consultant indicated that you guys have spent a year preparing this report. It's a lengthy, complex. We were given it 4 days before the scheduled hearing and told we had to provide comment in that short period of time. You did pause adoption at that time. We did meet. Some of our concerns were heard. I don't know if they were addressed. The consultant then had several weeks to revise the report. We got it back again just a few days before it was supposed to be heard for adoption. So again, just a matter of days. So that's where some of the challenges are. And when you say that as a result of our information and revisiting things, impact fees went up, I'm not here to say what the impact fee should be. I think they should be fair and equitable, and the model should be accurate when it spits out the numbers those should be.
sure. And I would say that I believe that we are accurate. We're following the law where you're saying we're not. And this is where we're going to always disagree on this because I have an attorney here. That's my attorney that's saying otherwise. Right. And you have a consultant out of Arizona that's telling us something else, which we're going to hear from and hear what they have to say, which is going to be good. Right. On that. But I just want to make sure that it's clear that we have had conversations to try to make some adjustments and address your concerns on this. So
I think we would love to engage in a little bit more meaningful conversation where we feel like we're actually being heard and not dismissed. Concerns are not being dismissed.
how about the other way around? That my concerns are being dismissed.
I don't feel like we've done that.
Okay, but I don't feel we've done that either. So
Fair
we can agree to disagree on that, right? All right. Cool. Appreciate you though, Adam.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. Yes, for now.
All right, Mr. Jorgensen. Mr. Dave Jorgensen, not Chris.
Good evening. My name is Dave Jorgensen, address 13965 West Chinden, Boise. And I'm here to just share a few thoughts on impact fees. It's interesting, over my career, I've had the opportunity to develop in STAR, but I'm not going to talk about that. But I have been invited to talk about impact fees, or actually been on impact fee committees. I served on ACHD's impact fee committee and have talked to them several times. I've served for more than 10 years with Boise City on their impact fee advisory committee. And I currently serve on 80 County's Impact Fee Advisory Committee and have for 3 or 4 years. And I've been invited to give comment and offer support. And one of my first comments are today, though I may have some development experience, I have 0 projects in STAR today. I have 0 planned projects in STAR today. I was just asked to invite and share some comments based on my expert experience. I've actually had the opportunity to speak in front of City of Boise and ACHD when there's opposition on impact fees. I support impact fees as long as they're fair and reasonable. Growth needs to pay for growth, but it needs to be fair and equitable. And unfortunately, I stand for you today, and I cannot support the impact fees as they're proposed today. I prepared and submitted a written response as requested by, I think, the mayor, actually. You asked for me to, and Christine asked me to provide some comments. I think around page 221 in your packet. There's a 3-page list of comments or questions which I prepared, and some of which have been addressed, and I appreciate that. Some of the comments address pathways and trails, which have been pulled out from tonight's discussion. Again, I appreciate that because I think there are some fairly significant concerns or discrepancies. However, let me just share one example. There's a discussion about lease versus owned. If I lease a car, I make my payments, that's great, but I can't tell the car owner that I own it. If the lease expires, you get to give the car back or you sign up for a new lease. You don't own the car. Same with office space. If I rent or lease office space, I don't get to tell the building owner that I own it. I get to say, well, once the lease expires, I sign up for a new lease or I move out. I don't own the building. There's clear discrepancy on opinion of what's leased versus owned, and impact fees are paid for based on what's capital owned by the city, not what's leased. That's a pretty clear description. By the way, I think I heard tonight that some of this shared space is shared with the fire department. Well, if you impose this impact fee now based on shared space, that sounds like double dipping to me, which you're calculating an impact fee based on what's leased or shared from the police perspective, and yet the impact fee is paid in full on the fire department side as well. So it'll be double charging for the same shared space. I could address other comments. My comments are shorted. I'll just leave it at this. I would like to, and I wish I could have stood in front of you tonight to support the impact fees. I don't think we're far off. I don't think it'd take many weeks to get it right. I just think there are a few items, one of which I just listed to you tonight, that are unfortunately incorrect and need to be corrected. Builders have asked, what do I do? I think they're stuck, honestly. I think some of them will choose to pay under protest so they can keep going and building their homes. So that if the city does choose to impose this new impact fee and it's challenged, the city may find itself in a situation where they'll have to refund those fees and frankly start over. I don't want the city or any city to be in that position. I, again, support impact fees. I've offered my time for free to our association, just as a respected individual of the industry. So with that, I stand for any questions, but unfortunately, I cannot stand here and support your fees tonight.
I do have a question for you there, Mr. Dave. So level of service per the state impact fee statute doesn't talk about anything about about lease versus owning. Where do you get that? Is there a legal case that says that? Is there somewhere in statute or IDAPA rules that say this? Because I can't find that anywhere where you guys are indicating. That's why I disagree with that. Because it says level of service just as a measure of the relationship between service capacity and service demand for public facilities. And so we're just saying that's our level of service. And when we go figure impact fees, you look at the CIP, it says that we're not taking a full 100% of that towards the impact, right?
Mhm.
So it's just established our level of service. And so when we go to hang on one second, when we go to a 50,000 square foot facility, let's say, and we're already leasing 20,000 square feet, that 20,000 square feet is not being paid for through impact fees. Only the 30,000 square feet is, right? If you think about it in just simple terms on that, right? And so I'm trying to understand where you come up with that, because it's been said for the last several months by the BC, and that's why we completely disagree on that side. So can you help me understand?
Sure, there
where
may
that
be a
coming from?
smarter attorney in the room that I'm related to, but I'll just say
Well, my
this.
attorney says he agrees with me. So that's where I'm trying to understand where you guys are coming from
Fair
this,
enough.
because we try to find everything that says otherwise, and we can't find anything.
So Mayor Chadwick and members of the council, I'm not an attorney. I don't speak to that. I've never seen it in my over 20 years of doing impact fees. I've never seen any impact fee established based on that. Same with cars. I've never seen a police car assessed for more than assumed. Now, it's a nice goal to have the police cars for more than 10 years. Maybe that's a new goal or new policy that the city of Star is going to be doing. But if that's not your current practice, then your future goal is not necessarily what you should be able to charge it on until you've established that as a new level of service. So to answer your question directly, no, I do not know. Doesn't mean it's not true. If you don't own the car, you don't own the car. If you don't own the building, you don't own the building. So why do you get to then charge as if you own or in the future, you It's just the wrong baseline. That's my opinion.
That's an opinion, right? But if I'm going off a level of service and it doesn't explicitly say otherwise in the code, then I think we're following the law and what this intent is, I guess, in what you're saying. And I know you've done a ton of these, man. You've been working on this for
Way too many times.
100 years here, and
Well, I'm
I can't
not
say
that
100,
old.
but a lot of years
Might be
here.
older than him, but
in our community.
yeah. But I'm not there.
Mayor
All
Chadwick.
right, Councilman Nielsen?
I guess I just want to maybe ask that same question a little bit different way and,
Sure.
and get your thoughts on that. So let's take, for example, the space that we currently lease over at the fire station. It's for our Parks and Rec department.
Sure.
Are you aware of the programs that we provide out of there? Or any idea?
Not specifically, Mr. Nielsen, but I'm sure they're wonderful programs.
Yeah, sure.
No
yeah.
concerns there.
So
I think it's a great service.
just for demonstration purposes. So one of the things we do out there, there's some cooking classes. There's art classes, other things, youth events, stuff like that. So when it comes to a level of service that we're talking about, what is the service that's being provided by the city? What's your understanding of that?
Mr. Mayor and Councilmember Nielsen, my understanding, and you can go down each of these items. Parks is oftentimes just labeled as acres per thousand population. But the reality is not every park's the same. Some parks are just big old green space and you throw the Frisbee and that's great. I remember working with City of Boise and they wanted to expand the Whitewater Park and have cameras installed so you could watch internet online with the surfers and all that stuff, which is pretty cool. But that was determined as expanding the level of service. That new camera facility wasn't very expensive. It was more the intent.
Right.
And so that was a clear discussion. If you want to get specific, Mayor Chadwick, that was a city attorney opinion that was issued by them at the time. I'm trying not to mix cities here, but that's just
Oh, my
experience.
question is, what is the service? If we're talking level of service, what is the service?
So in the instance of police, it's in this case, and as I understand here, it's measured as number of police officers per thousand.
Yeah. But for
It's
Parks
not
and Rec,
based on
Parks and Rec,
Parks and Rec is often, again, acres per thousand. It's very generic. It's not, we do cooking classes or we teach people how to swim, or it's not that. And that's a challenge. Fully admittedly, as I've seen this city, other cities I've worked with, it's like, oh, well, we want to do those things. Well, that's wonderful. That doesn't mean you can't. But if that's a new program you want to do, then, well, that's expanding that opportunity for all citizens, not just the new residents coming in. So that would be a shared new service, if that makes sense to you.
yeah, that does make sense to me. So if I've got a building that I lease, that I provide a Parks and Rec service out of,
Right.
it's not the building that's the service.
It's what happens inside
It's
it.
what happens
I
inside.
totally agree with you. Yeah. Yeah.
And so if I've got more people coming in, my programs are in high demand, we're turning people away. In order to maintain that level of service
Mhm.
based on the growth that's coming,
Mhm.
I need more space. Now I've got a couple of options. I can go lease more space for additional operational expense,
Correct.
or I can build a building
Correct.
and build my own space. Would you agree that building a building to expand based on that growth-driven service is appropriate for impact fees?
Actually, I would disagree with that. If the current level of service is renting, then the maintaining level of service would be.
The service isn't renting, the service is Parks and Rec
The
programs.
cost to attributed to that service is operating expense, not a capital expense. And so you have ongoing expenses and you have one-time expenses. Your one-time expenses are for your capital expenses. Impact fees are one-time expenses. So should the capital, the one-time acquisition of a building. The ongoing expenses are what property taxes and fees and other things that help pay for that ongoing expense.
So because
Those are
I
separate.
choose to provide part of my service with an operational expense and other parts of my service, 'cause some of those same classes are held here in this building,
Mhm. Mhm.
the asset that I own.
Mhm.
That means that I can't do other assets that I own?
Mr. Mayor and Councilmember Nielsen, again, you have your capital expenses. I think your Star River House, I'm pretty sure, I think does the city own that facility?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be a good example of something the city owns.
Yep.
And as Parks and Rec or other activities outside of it, that's a great example of what does qualify for a capital cost.
Right. So if I wanted to build another one of those
Fair.
river houses,
And I'll stand up here and support it.
so that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, and I agree with that. But those that are leased are not qualified. Those you own are,
100% agree with you
those
on
that are
that.
leased are not. That's what I'm rating.
Yeah.
So if you have a park
I'm
facility,
confused. So where are we suggesting that we use impact fees to lease more space?
Mr. Mayor and Councilmember Nielsen, it's my understanding some of the facilities the city has, and if I'm wrong, I'll be the first to admit it today. Some of the facilities that are counted are leased but not owned. Again, that police facility that is leased or shared with the fire department is a lease with the.
But you're
fire department.
referring to level of service though, right? Establishing level of service.
That's correct, Mayor.
So he's referring to establishing level of service. He's saying that you can't use lease space to establish that level of service.
So if I could maybe be a little more clear, let's say you have 1,000 square feet of this and 2,000 square feet of that. The 2,000 square foot leased building does not qualify. The 1,000 square foot that you own does qualify.
So so hypothetically then, if I leased all of my parks, all of my open space, all of my pathways, all of my indoor space for recreation program, then according to your definition, the city would have 0 level of service.
If you lease it, I don't know that you do because you don't.
No,
lease everything.
hypothetical, just to follow the law.
That's correct. Yeah. If you don't own any park space, you don't have a level of service. To
I
serve.
don't have a level of service.
But
Okay.
you don't. You have a level, as was stated, you have about 5 acres per 1,000.
Yeah.
And that is your baseline. That is what you have.
It-
Growth's not there to pay for expanding level of service. It's to maintain level of service.
And I
You
just,
may or may not like it. I appreciate that, but that.
No, I appreciate knowing where you're coming from because
and
I think that distinction is going to be really important here tonight.
Understood. And I know that Carter can help add a little more depth to that because he's helped across the state, but
Yeah.
that's been my experience and hope that helps.
and I just want to be clear, that's your opinion because it's not built into the
It
statute.
might
or
be
anywhere.
my experience of 25 years of doing this.
Well, but it's an opinion though, right? It's an
Based on
experience
25
opinion.
years of doing this.
Right.
So
If you-
Mayor Chadwick,
here.
one other thing.
Councilman Nielsen?
So you talked about potential double charging because we're leasing space at the fire department. Because we're not using impact fees to lease that space with the fire department, how would that be double charging?
Mr. Mayor and Councilmember Nielsen, my understanding is that if you are currently qualifying that space as a portion of your existing level of service, so if you've raised your level of service based on the amount of square footage of space that you're leasing, then that is artificially inflating the level of service. If you take out that inflated number, I will support it today. It's that portion that I have a hard
Got
time
it.
with.
Okay, thank you.
I hope that helps.
Councilwoman?
Mayor Chadwick, thank you. So in our presentation, it did, one of the slides, it did say that for lease space, the Idaho Code does not prohibit lease space when determining the level of service. And so you can look at 67820324. And that's where it says it does not prohibit lease space. But what you're saying is that is not true.
I think he's saying from his years of
From your-
experience.
Never seen it.
Right.
You've never seen it.
Never seen it.
Okay.
I read it as, first of all, I'm not an attorney, so I don't read statutes. Very rarely ever do I. So I defer to those who do. But my experience is that it's never been done.
So would this be a good time for our attorney to jump in,
Yeah,
or do you want
Chris,
to wait?
you want to jump in on this,
Or
please,
should we
sir?
just? Yeah.
Mayor Chadwick, I'll
Councilman Nielsen?
just say, that- and Mr. Jorgensen, I really appreciate the back and forth. I really do. Where I struggle with that, with the way that you're looking at this is I've got thousands of kids and hundreds of families who come out and experience a level of service from the city through leased and owned properties. I don't know how in the world of logic and reality that could be reduced to the city doesn't have a level of service. I can't get there. So I'm open to it. I really am. And I want to understand, but I can't get there.
Mr. Mayor, can I just add briefly?
Okay.
Or do you want him to speak?
No, oh, did you want Chris to speak? I think someone asked.
I did ask, but go ahead. You respond and then we'll go for.
Okay. You
Okay,
could
so I
respond.
know there's other people who want to speak, so I'll be brief.
Oh, we got till midnight, man.
Stay as long as you want, but that's not my plan. If you maintain those that are assets you own and you have impact fees for what you own, that's good. If you are renting spaces, you want to keep renting spaces based on those operating expenses, again, that is good. But using a one-time operating expense to assume that you own something, that's the gap that I struggle with. Doesn't mean you can't do it through other means, but paying The one-time fees for ongoing expenses is the gap.
Yeah, and I don't think there's any assumption of ownership. It's the distinction between what is the service.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Jorgensen, appreciate that. Chris, did you want to?
And the reality is we don't care if we're here all night if we get it right.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, Chris, you want to talk about lease space, level of service?
Yeah, I think we've already discussed it. My opinion's obviously different. I don't think there's anything in the code that says that your level of service has to be confined to city-owned assets. And so because what we do, we provide service, right? If we didn't have the lease space, then we wouldn't have the service. And so what we talk about is an existing level of service, what we're providing to the community. We can't replace the lease space with impact fees. So what we're currently leasing would not be something that an impact fee would cover. We can't use impact fees to acquire more leased space, right? The impact fees can only be used to acquire capital improvements. But I don't see anything in the definition of level of service that limits it only to city-owned assets. What we use the impact fees for have to be city-owned assets. So once we put the impact fee in place, but the initial analysis is what is our level of service that we're providing. And when we're talking like our Park and Recs department, well, if we didn't have that lease space, then our level of service would certainly be quite a bit lower because we wouldn't be providing that service to our citizens. That's the analysis we've gone through. And I think I think Christie's, kind of described that in the report, and that's where that foundation comes from. So we've calculated that, but that's based on, our reading of the Idaho code on, where we start with the level of service calculation. Going forward, it has to be used on capital improvements, but it does not say in the code the level of service is calculated using only, to Kevin's point, Councilman Nielsen's point, the service is what we're providing, the things that we do. It's not necessarily the specific, asset. It is sometimes. It's, it kind of gets a little bit tricky, but it's, we have that space, which allows us to provide the service. If we didn't have that space, we wouldn't provide the service. And so we're talking about what level of service to provide to our community, and that's how we're looking at it.
Okay. Any further questions? All right, we'll move on to the next one. Mr. Cameron.
Mayor Chadwick, members of Star City Council, for the record, my name is Cameron Kinzer. I'm the Government Affairs Director for Boise Regional Realtors. I'm here representing our realtor members who work every day to make homeownership a reality for Idaho families.
Can you give us the address real quick?
Yeah,
please?
sorry. 4344 North Ferris Street in Boise, Idaho.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. At Boise Regional Realtors, we understand that growth must pay its way. We have supported impact fees across our region. However, because these fees directly increase cost of housing, they must be carefully reviewed and held to a higher standard. After reviewing the impact fee proposal and the technical analysis conducted on behalf of the Building Contractors Association, we have significant concerns about this proposal. Mr. Jorgensen already identified several of those, but one that I keep getting asked about from our realtor members that are also developers is in the proposal where it assumes vehicles and equipment that meet a 10-year useful life standard. In practice, many police vehicles last 3 to 5 years under heavy use. If these assets cannot be validated to meet that standard, they should not be included. Finally, the proposal identifies roughly $30 million in costs that the city must fund, but does not clearly identify how that will be paid for, creating uncertainty about whether the planned level of service will ultimately be delivered. We are in a housing affordability crisis across the Treasure Valley. I know Councilman Nielsen said it's not the responsibility of the city council for housing affordability, but we have a different opinion of that. It's part of the overall equation. The cost of new construction plays a major role in home prices across the market. When those costs go up, it impacts every buyer in the community. The median sales price in Star right now is between 600,000 and 620,000. For these reasons, and based on the concerns identified by the BCA, we respectfully request the council table this proposal for further refinement. Thank you for your time and consideration. I'll stand for any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Cameron?
Sir.
Councilman Nielsen?
Thank you.
I think we're going to ask everybody.
I'll try not to drag it out. Look, I want to first clarify, and then maybe we can talk about it because I'm open to seeing things differently.
Yeah.
When I say that it's not the city's responsibility for housing affordability, I do recognize that city policies have an impact on housing affordability. My viewpoint on this is there's an impact that growth brings to the city. There's a cost for that, right? So either growth pays for that or the city subsidizes it or somebody subsidizes it. That money's got to come from somewhere. So when we talk about housing affordability, I have to look at it from the standpoint of what am I as a city council person willing to adopt as a subsidy for people that are moving here? And I find myself not willing to provide subsidies for people that are moving here.
Mhm.
So that's where I land on that. And I'm open to seeing it differently. Like if there's something that I can do to help with housing affordability from a policy standpoint, then I'm aligned with you that the city's got an accountability there to create policies that promote, good planning and housing that's appropriate for our area and that follows Idaho code that says that we provide for all housing types. And this council knows I'm the one that always points out in Idaho code where it says that, mobile homes are part of one of those housing types. So I try to look at it from the whole perspective. Open to your thoughts on that.
Well, I know you guys are under a lot of pressure, especially with 389, and I think that was one of the biggest linchpins in terms of increasing some of these fees that needed to be increased to maintain the level of service for everything that you guys provide. So in terms of affordability, you're right, there's not a lot that you can do. Impact fees need to be levied, but in terms of what level they're at, we partner with the BCA on this, and we look to them as the experts because we don't have a ton of developers in our association. We just hear from our members that it's harder and harder to get families and homes, not just in Star, but across the Treasure Valley. And any type of change affects the entire market. So you guys are not the most expensive. The median sales price across Ada County is $520. But, in Eagle, it's approaching 880,000, 900,000. So anything that the city council can do to reduce the cost of new construction is helpful to the overall market. But we'd welcome you in to talk with our public policy committee for some other ideas.
Yeah, I'd love that. Okay. I've got a son right now. He's going to have his first kid next month. His biggest concern is how do I get insurance? He's can't even think about how to buy a house.
Mhm.
He would love to live in Star. There's not a chance, so I'm living this just like everybody else is. And I'd love to help find a way. So.
We'd love to have you in.
All right. Any other questions for Mr. Cameron?
Mr. Mayor.
No, Councilman Day?
Yes, sir. On your study on the police vehicles, on the life of the vehicle,
Mhm.
where are you getting that study from?
The standard in our research is 3 to 5 years. of
Okay, but where are you
operational.
getting that?
I don't have the exact source, but I could pull that up for you.
Do you know how many police cars we have and with Star Police Department, or how many of those vehicles are take-home vehicles that aren't used
No, I
24/7?
don't know the specifics on that.
So you don't really know the life of a police vehicle?
Well, is the standard not 3 to 5 years across the board, or I see something?
Not,
I've never seen that. I was in law enforcement 31 years. I've never heard that.
Okay.
So I'm just wondering where you're coming up with that number.
I mean, I can pull the research up for you, but I don't have it on with me right now. And I think that the consultant from Launch will talk a little bit more about that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Cameron. Appreciate it, sir. Ms. Jenna?
All right. I'll lower this for people that are shorter than all the gentlemen for me. It doesn't go down?
Slide it down the.
I think I got it. Okay. Can you hear me? Good evening, Mayor Chadwick and council people. This is my first time speaking at one of these, so bear with me. My name is Jenna England. I am a Star resident. I am president of Berkeley Building, and I've been building homes in Star since 2008. Probably have built a home for a lot of people in this room. And my address is 10043 West Hercules Drive, Star, Idaho 83669. In case you didn't know your zip code. Okay. Like I said, I've been building in Star since 2008. More importantly than being a home builder, I am your neighbor. It has been disclosed. I'm a friend to many people in this room. That's the beauty of being in an active community, in a community like Star. You know your neighbors a lot of the time, and you're invested in the community. I'm definitely invested in the community that I build in. I've served as the Star Elementary PTO advisor. I have coached alongside Ron as a soccer coach for the Star Parks and Rec for years. And I've built the St. Jude Dream Home in Star 4 years out of the 14, 4 years here in Star. I also served on the Impact Advisory Committee. Sorry, Mike, my phone's not keeping up. And I want to be clear that while my name is associated with that process, I submitted my feedback, as was noted in several of those slides, in protest of many of these proposed increases, both during the committee discussions and again ahead of tonight's meeting. And a lot of those letters are probably in your packet. I didn't look for what pages those are on. I am supportive of impact fees, which is why I was happy to be and honored to be able to serve on that committee when they are tied to true growth, aligned with established level of service standards, and implemented in a way that is fair and proportional. However, I believe what is currently being proposed falls outside of those standards and places an undue proportion of the burden on the building and development community. My concern is with cumulative impact. It is concerning as a member of City Council that you wouldn't be concerned about the cost of housing today. City Council, more than probably any entity, has the greatest impact on the fees that we pay, the requirements you make for development. All of those things greatly affect the cost to build a home. I've shared previously that more than 25% of the cost of a home is already tied to governmental regulations and fees. Each additional increase, no matter how well-intentioned, adds to that burden and moves home ownership further out of reach for all. I think it's important to note that these fees are the same whether I'm trying to make an effort to build townhomes, you're building a mobile home, these fees are the same regardless, or you're building a multi-million-dollar estate. These impact fees are proportional across all of those. So to be able to build attainable housing with these large fees that are set, no matter what you're building, it makes a huge increase on attainable housing directly more proportionate than any other type of housing. This is not just a builder's perspective, it's a community one. We all want strong infrastructure and thoughtful growth, but we also want a community where teachers, first responders, and young families can afford to live, just not commute into. I would respectfully ask for a more measured and transparent approach, one that ensures alignment with level of service and maintains proportionality while keeping in focus who we are building the city for. Capital assets with a 10-year level of service. Again, I'm not an attorney, but I would say when you mentioned what I consider a level of service, art classes and cooking classes, I don't consider crayons or pots and pans as a part of that because those are not capital assets. If I am to put down my capital assets to secure financing, I'm not able to put my leased office space included in that. And in that way, I feel that lease space does not qualify. That is an operational expense, just like my lease for my business is an operational expense. I can only use as leveraged capital expenses like the land that I own and the buildings that I actually own. So that's how I see it differentiated. If impact fees move beyond the level of service and proportionality, they
Ms.
stop,
Jenna, you're almost out of time there. Well, you were out of time, but,
they stop being a tool for growth and become a barrier to it. Thank you for your time.
okay. Any questions for Ms. Jenna?
Yeah, Mayor Chadwick.
Councilman Nielsen, you may get to finish with him.
Yeah, you might get to. And look, I'm asking everybody questions because I'm really
Yeah,
trying
no.
to, like Councilman Wheelock said, I want to make sure we get this right. And I want to understand. Right?
And I'm
So,
sorry, I'm freezing in here. So
Yeah,
I'm
it
like
is.
shaking because I'm so cold.
It
right
is
now.
cold.
I was shaking because I was nervous.
Oh, I'm literally freezing. So I was going to ask if you sell sweatshirts.
We do, actually.
Okay. Do you have any available?
No, not right now.
Size medium. Okay. Oh, thank you. Thanks, Steve.
All right, what's your question there, Councilman?
Thank you.
Yeah, so I want to understand, you said that, cities have a great impact on affordability. And, I recognize that the fees that we charge do have an impact on that. And I think it's a really valid point that that fee is the same, whether it's a, $140,000 home or a $1.2 million home here in Star, right? And that matters. I'm curious though, from in your perspective, if I didn't charge an impact fee that was actually covering the cost of that impact to the city, where would that fee come from? Where does the difference? How should we make that up?
I'm not saying that you shouldn't be charging it and that it isn't proportionate. I'm just saying that when you look at that larger number, be aware of what you're asking for. And if those are actual capital expenses, what I'm saying is I don't believe that they are the way that they're stated. I don't think that we shouldn't, but because knowing that that is a permanent fee, then that's across the board to be cognizant of that number that you
Yeah.
adopt.
In your office, that hypothetical, I don't know if you lease or you own, but let's say, so you lease. Would you say that at the end of the year, when you look at your revenue, would you say that you have no revenue because you've leased your space?
No.
No, you've still provided a business service out of that lease space, have you not?
But I'm not able to count that as like an asset that I have.
I understand. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're not counting assets here either.
But impact fees are to pay for capital asset expenses.
They're to pay for expenses associated with providing a service.
But you can only utilize.
For a capital improvement plan, yeah.
That in order to provide a service.
I would
Yeah,
argue that how you're saying it and how I'm saying it are not the same. But yeah,
yeah.
just like a cooking class can't, like what it takes to provide a cooking class can't be considered in this. Those are operational expenses,
Yeah, understood.
not capital assets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
If I'm getting a loan, I can't count my office as an asset that I have because I don't own it.
understood, but we're not counting assets here. We're providing a service.
But
You're
those services can't be paid for by impact
regardless
fees.
of your
Mr.
leased office or an office that you might own and build, you're
Mhm.
still doing your business, are you not?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. When it comes to, well, I think I can leave it at that.
Ms. Jenna, I want to ask a question just real quick. I
Sure.
think, you said 25% of the expenses are tied to government fees, I think? Is that what you're saying?
Government regulation and oversight.
Regulations and fees?
Mhm.
Okay. But it's just not all fees. It's part of the regulation part of that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Any further questions for Ms. Jenna? All right, thank you. Okay, we have Mr. Ken Burgess. And it's just nice to see you not in a suit for the first time in 5 months.
Mr. Mayor, how are you?
How are you?
Mayor and Council, my name is Ken Burgess. My address is 802 West Bannock in Boise, Suite 104. In full disclosure, I am a government affairs consultant and I do work for the Home Builders Association. Mayor Chadwick and I have spent a lot of quality time together down at the Capitol building over the last little while. And I want to just touch base on a couple things, some of which have already been said. And the one thing element that I wanted to bring that I have been, I think, very noisy about this process from the beginning is that I think the report stretches the boundaries a little bit of the definition of what is considered an impact fee eligible expense. And we've kind of bounced around on that a little bit. Certainly the idea in the parks program, the idea of fleet vehicles, maintenance equipment, mowers, edges, trailers, et cetera. I think is hard pressed to say that that would have a 10-year life as defined in the impact fee law. Likewise, the same with the police and squad cars. The plan calls for potentially 24 new vehicles, assuming that the growth projections continue as they're in the report. It includes radar trailers, pistols, rifles, a golf cart, for example. And then here's what I think we're saying all over the place is that, again, because of the effects of House Bill 389, and STAR is the epicenter of that right now, right? I think many cities, including your own, are trying desperately to find ways to pay for things from somewhere, right? And I think that with the impact fees and the parameters that are placed around that, I think that many cities are starting to stretch the boundaries of what I think are legally allowable under the definition. And so I just wanted to point that out. If you were to adopt this fee at its maximum, if the projections are equal, what you're effectively doing is you'll be raising the price of homes for $63 million over the course of the next 3 years in the city of Star. And as an association, we have always been trying to work on, trying to figure out ways to make housing more attainable, more affordable. And so everywhere we turn, there's a new fee, new impact fee proposed. And so it's quite frankly, we're growing weary of it. So, Mr. Mayor, with that, I want to just leave it at that.
Okay.
I got a question.
Okay, Councilman Wheelock.
I'm going to jump in here. The affordability, each of you as individuals are developing and building homes for affordability. Everyone, and I don't say this to you, but everybody kind of in general, affordability is all relative because everybody wants to put the nicest stuff and still make it affordable.
True.
Most of the homes that we're talking about having be affordable have granite, they're wood floors, they're beautiful homes. Don't get me wrong. That doesn't make them more affordable. That makes them more expensive, smaller. And so affordability is all relative when you still want somebody to come in and buy your product. You guys build beautiful homes in Star, no doubt. But nobody's working to downgrade their equipment so that they're more affordable. They're building them better because people still want them. And we want to provide a level of service as a city that we have come through as a standard, right? That's our goal as a city. We have effectively, as one of the original residents of Star, seen my level of service significantly lower than when there was 300 of us in town. And I guess that's the level of service that I want to see restored and maintained. That's all I've got. Thank
Okay.
you.
You want to comment on that, Ken, at all?
Well, Mr. Mayor and Council, I have had legislators asking me over the last few years, they're looking at me saying, what can we, the legislature do, right, to try to bring the cost of housing broadly in Idaho down? There are a lot of elements that they can't control, a lot of elements that you can't control, right? You got mortgage rates, you got inflation, you've got tariffs, you name it, the cost of labor, et cetera, that you probably can't control that much. Here's what I told the legislature this year is that the one thing the legislature can do is to try to provide some relief at the local planning and zoning level in order to provide a broader array of housing stock, a different mix of housing stock. And as a result, you saw a handful of those bills that got passed this last year related to accessory dwelling units, related to small home subdivisions, manufactured housing. That was a direct result of them at least trying to do what they can to help deal with the supply side of the supply and demand issue, which is the one thing that I think you guys can have some impact on. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ken. All right, Brandon Wood.
Hello, City Council. My name is Brandon Wood. I am at 10933 West Colina Vista Drive in Star, Idaho. That's here. I'm a precinct committeeman for 1001. I haven't asked for the views of my constituents on this, and these statements do not convey the views of them. I would like to make a two-part stance. Currently used, we have the highest impact fees and the least parks in the valley. Why?
Wait, okay, what you say? We have the highest impact fees?
We have the highest impact fees in the valley.
No.
Where we rank.
Well, it depends on what you, where you want to go. It's all over the board for everybody.
Okay.
I mean, I got them all right here for several cities.
Okay.
You said something about parks.
How many parks do we have currently?
I don't know. We have 100 acres of parks or something like that. It's in our CIP, in our level of service stuff in our packet.
Okay.
Yeah, 5.05 per thousand people and acres of parks that we have.
Okay.
In our CIP.
Why is giving more money to the highest in the valley going to help? Highest fees, we'll stand corrected on that if that is need to be changed. In our current status, increase the fees, yet remain the lowest amount of parks in the valley. Correct me if I'm wrong on that too.
I completely disagree with you on that statement, on that.
What city has?
I'm not going to sit here and go back and forth and answer your questions. I would hope that you would do the research and bring that in and tell me that what it is. You're asking me the questions like I should know everything on other cities.
How many parks do we have in the city of Star? As
We
the
got,
mayor,
what, 6 or 7 parks.
we're asking for impact fees, yet we don't know the number of parks that we have in the city. Well, there's a question mark. Is our current, you had your time to talk. I think we should use our current money a little bit better. And then secondly, next generation of buyers, we're talking about the money and also the cost of housing. Next generation of buyers are being pushed out of the Star as we speak, with mortgage rates roughly at 6.5%. The cost of $10,000 added to a home is roughly $65 per month. At $40,000 impact fees per house, we're talking roughly $250 per month, $3,000 per year. This is not the Star way. I currently have 4 kids. I don't think, like you, Mr. Nielsen, your son may not be able to buy here. I don't think my kids will be able to be in Star down the road. I have a 17-year-old myself. As of now, more fees should not be passed on to new homeowners. We're in this position right now because of the lack of foresight for commercial space.
You need to
Also rapid.
You need to wrap up your time, Brandon.
I'll just end with this. Let's delay this, join together and get the House Bill 389 fixed. And this will alleviate our issues and we can come back at that time, revise based off of that.
Okay, I'm gonna just go right here with you on this. You're talking to the guy that's been fighting the hardest in this friggin' state to change 389. No one else has fought as hard as I have on making changes. I got the speaker to finally make it a comment this year to say that there's a problem, but we can't get him to make a change. The only option that was out there was the builders to throw my name into the ring without talking to me to run against the speaker, right? You guys put all sorts of pressure on me while I was trying to negotiate some changes in the state that went nowhere. So I have been asking the development community, the realtor community, the business community, everybody to join forces to help do this. This is the first year that we've got anybody that helps jump on that, and Ken helped out tremendously on trying to get changes. The city of Star is not failing in this at all. We understand the problem and we've been trying to fix that. When you say there's $40,000 in impact fees in Star, it's not. Somebody in the BCA went online and said there was $40,000 of impact fees in Star. Not the case. The impact fees in Star are roughly $10,000. Impact fees. Now, there's other fees that are associated with that, sewer and water fees and residential permit fees and things like that bring up your cost to $26,000, but not 40. So to make assumptions here to the city of Star on this, we're doing everything we can. We're providing a community that's great. I'm with Councilman Wheelock. I'm one of the originals that was here in the city of Star since '94. My kids can't buy a house here. I have a son that's making great money. He's a welder. He's 22 years old, could only qualify for 385. There ain't nothing here in this town that's 385 anymore. My first house was $97,000, man, on a quarter acre, right? I totally get it. That same house is selling for $700,000. So I just want to make sure that you understand that we are doing everything we can in this city to try to make certain that we fix these problems. And we need everybody's help, not just the builders, developers. We need the community's help that put the pressure on the legislature, because the legislature is failing us on every friggin' single level in this state. And it needs to be known. And they know that I feel this way on that.
That's why I asked to join together.
Yeah. I'm all for it, man. Join, help us. Help us fix that problem.
I'm just getting involved.
But it doesn't, kicking the can down the road doesn't fix that problem, because until there's a big overhaul in leadership and stuff in that state house, we'll never see a change. Because they penalize and hate local communities. They hate cities to a passion. You look at all the bills that they try to throw on cities over throughout the year, including the ones that Ken talked about, that makes it difficult for us to manage our communities, right? That's a challenge. And I just ask and implore every one of you guys to come and help on this. And he knows I'm going to get heated sometime tonight. So he gives me a yellow highlighter to tell me, okay, enough. So thank you, Brandon. I appreciate you up there. And we have conversations all the time, but I just want to make certain that that was very out there and understood on that. So thank you.
My biggest thing was just trying to get the numbers where they're at, so that people in this room that may not know what the numbers are can have an idea of what they are. And so throwing out different numbers brought that up and able to.
The number of parks are like 10.
It just depends. That's irrelevant. You got to look at our plan and how many acres of parks that we have compared to what our comprehensive plan says on how many acres per 1,000 people and what we're doing. I will tell you that in the plan, right now we sit at 5.05. Our comprehensive plan says that we use the established level of 5. So we backed it down to 5. We didn't even use the 5.05 to figure out the park impact fees where we currently sit. We're following what our plan was that's been in our comprehensive plan for quite a few years. So just so you're aware, that's where it's at right now. Okay, awesome. Ryan. What's your last name? Are you Ryan?
Yeah.
Steiger?
Steiger, correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, bad handwriting there on that on the way in. So yeah, Ryan Steiger. I live at 3524 North Harvest Moon Way in Eagle, and I'm a builder. We have a couple projects here in Star that we're currently building in. Pacific Lifestyle Homes is the name of the company. The first thing I want to say.
What is it? I'm sorry.
Pacific Lifestyle.
Oh, Pacific.
So we're currently
Yeah, I
building
got it.
in Star Point and Inspirato there.
Yep.
So the first thing I want to say, I'm not against impact fees. I think they do serve a purpose, and you guys, there's been a lot of great examples of why they are good things. Fair and reasonable has been talked about. I agree with that as well. I'll also make the point that a lot of these finer points around the very technical things, like I like building houses, those deep details, I leave that to the BCA. And I think we have some really smart people that are members of the BCA that can speak to those things. What it seems like in front of us right now is a very dynamic problem. It's not a simple one. I just want to acknowledge that. You're trying to do the right thing of expanding or taking that level of service and making sure it doesn't get damaged or go down as the city grows. And that's not easy when you only got so many dollars to work with. Now, at the same time, there's housing affordability like we talked about. And there's, as I understand, there's level of service, you take that, you factor it up, it says the cost is going to be this. And then you're backing into an impact fee to charge for that future growth there. That math equation, it's tough for me to just fathom on paper how that truly works out perfectly into the future, doing it that way. I'm also just wondering, again, it's a dynamic situation. Is there a different way to come up with that fee? Could it be the way it's implemented, the time it's implemented?
A couple things I just heard sitting here and I wrote down today. I haven't asked for any feedback from the BCA on these ideas, so I hope they're not bad ones. But you know, some things I heard.
Yes, man.
Yeah, so some things I heard on that though. So, you know, when it comes to, well, actually, one point I want to make, the grandfather vesting. You know, when you go and buy property as a builder, you're making a decision that day on what the future might be, and we take our best guess around it, and we run all the numbers to see if the project's going to make sense. If there was vesting, I know from my perspective, it would definitely be helpful because we just go and buy these lots around these assumptions we make. I also wanted to point out, if you want to increase some development and let's just say you go 2 years from the time that whatever impact fees are adopted and changed, that the current plats have under the current schedule, that would actually, I think, spur development and increase that supply to help with some of those housing costs. So if you think about it, if you're a developer and you got a pre-approved plat and you know that from say 30 days from now, you got 2 years to develop those lots, build those homes, and you got this fee structure, it's going to incentivize that development to happen versus those plats just sitting there idle. If you're a builder and you already got finished lots, or you develop those lots and you're a builder and you're going to build those homes, you got 2 years to get those permits in, out, homes built, and that'll help with the supply. So I think there is a way to put a burden of time on it. The other one I was just going to mention, again, a dynamic situation. Maybe there's a stepping of the fees. I don't know if code allows it to be done that way, but maybe it's instead of this to that, just in a 30-day period, there's a 2-year period of it where it steps up and takes time to get there.
Let me ask you, you're out of time, but let me ask, I've been thinking about this since the first guy was up here and made this comment. What if we were, and the council will have to approve this, if they were to do something with the impact fees where year one, it's at 80% of that cost, year two is 90, year three is at 100. That's a 3-year step to get to that 100% of whatever the value is that they establish.
Yeah. And yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, whether it's, of course, we are naturally going to argue for maybe it starts a little lower than 80%.
Well, of course you are.
But that's natural, right? We're on opposite ends
I'm going to
of the
argue for
table.
more.
Yeah. So no, but that's what I'm talking about is if maybe there's a stepping into it that makes it a little bit less painful day one and gets to where you want to go overall. Yeah, that was one of them. If I can ask a question, because
you can absolutely ask a question.
So something that I was curious about hearing this. So when came up with the amount of for the parks, the number of acres per 1,000, I think it was, and then you're projecting out in the future, you got to buy this land to maintain that same level. If a development goes in and there's open space in that development, how is that counted towards that future land being bought?
If they provide that to the city, they would get credit towards impact fees at the 185 value of that. It's just not open space for the community. It's an actual park space for the city.
Yeah.
Yep.
I understand that part.
Mr. Mayor?
My question is,
I just want to confirm that if the only open space is just what's required by city code.
Oh.
it doesn't count, right?
Yeah, right. Is that what you're asking?
not, yeah.
Yeah,
So if
anything
you're
extra.
required
Yeah.
15% open space, let's say, you're not getting 185,000 for that.
No. That's part of the community.
Yeah, my question is, I was trying to say it another way. So when you're projecting out, you need to set aside, you need to collect this much money to buy that parkland at 185,000 an acre. Does that assume that 100% of that needed land to maintain that level of service is going to come from purchased land, or does it take into account that there's going to be subdivisions and developments that go in that will provide open space as it functionally?
The 15% open space is not included in any of this that's required in these developments. It's actual park space, because that 15% is the part of the subdivision for open space.
So the
This is
15
actually city parks space.
So the 15% is not factored in.
No. Now, unless in the course of our negotiations up here, you decide on 100 acres, you decide to give us a 15-acre park in there as to the city, and it qualifies as part of your open space, but also gives it to the city, we could give credit for impact fees on that as well.
Yes. So yes, if I'm a developer and I do that, I get that I'm going to get that money. I guess, but what about if there's more than 15% and that land is not purchased?
It's not, if it's not city owned, it's never going to be included in space that is acquired in the future for the city. That's development owned. That's the HOA that owns that property.
Yes, but functionally,
The functionality or not, it's never going to be added in. It's going to be city property that the city owns, that that the entirety of all citizens in Star will end up owing us as a tax base.
and I'm not saying that the city should pay the developer any of that 15%. What I'm trying to say is, I think subdivisions today have a better function to them, oftentimes because the city does want to make sure that it's a well-designed, well-built subdivision that the residents that live specifically within it can use. And so I firmly believe a subdivision today in some ways has less burden on city parks that are going to need to be acquired in the future, because residents can stay within the subdivision that they actually live in and take advantage of it and use it. And I do not have facts to back this up, but in my experience, years past everywhere, not just in Star, anywhere, subdivisions that used to be developed had less parks, less open space. Residents of those subdivisions had to rely on city parks more. And the regulations and planning and zoning codes of today, the new subdivisions often have superior amenity packages and open space, which I think creates less burden for city parks in the future.
Yeah, hang on a second. Yeah, but that 15%, whatever that percentage is from that HOA is for the HOA only. It's not a public park. Right? Our impact fees, if you were to open that up to everybody in the community to utilize the city, that's different. I know what you're saying, but it's not going to be part of this formula on here as far as figuring our impact, figuring out our open space for all the citizens of the city of Star.
Mayor Chadwick.
Yeah.
Councilman Wheelock first. Sorry, he was.
Oh, yeah, I didn't hear.
Sorry.
It just comes down to like the HO, let's go to Legacy out in Eagle, has got beautiful parks everywhere. They don't want me coming to barbecue at their park. That's just not a thing. They don't allow that. They want it for their residents. So it's not a city option. It's specific for them. But we have places that we're going to still want to have Little League and all those things. That's what a city park is going to end up providing as a more of a city umbrella. That's what we're talking about.
No, I get that. Growth pays for growth, or some version of that I heard earlier today. So take Legacy as an example. I know we're talking Eagle versus Star, but just as an example, there's a lot of open space there and a lot of active open space that can be used. You have that growth. So the growth is Legacy. The home is built, the people living there, that's the growth. What I'm trying to say is I think the formula is off, because the subdivisions of today, I think the residents can stay within their subdivisions more to utilize that and puts less burden on city parks. So that's the point I'm trying to make. I'm not saying.
I understand that, but our level of service is based on the parks that are utilized by all citizens that can be utilized by all citizens of the community, not by HOA parks for just that community in there, right? And that's how we determine our level of service to figure out how much parks we need and impact fees.
Ryan, I appreciate your ideas, and I like this conversation. I think you're onto something with, in my opinion, with this idea of the parks within the HOAs. And I think there's maybe a couple ways to look at it. And the first way, that probably my default way to look at that, would be that if we didn't require those amenities within the subdivisions, then instead of 5 acres per thousand, we might need more like 7 acres per thousand. So I kind of feel like that's already factored in. Maybe not intentionally, but when I look at how our parks are used today, like if you drive around on any given weekend here in Star, our parks are full of people. They're really well used. If we increased, or if we decrease the amount of space in the HOAs that's open and has those amenities, then I think you're right. We would probably need even more park space. And so I tend to think that we maybe have some balance there. However, I think what you're bringing up, maybe we could look at in light of some of these other ideas you have too. Let's say if an HOA or if a development came in and brought in, say, a 20-acre park in there that we could put a bunch of soccer fields in, and wanted to have a at least back to the city during soccer season. The city could then use that exclusively for its programs. Maybe there's something that could be done on a case-by-case basis that would lower the impact fees required, because that would definitely be providing an avenue for the city to continue providing its services at a reduced cost, right?
Yeah, I think we're tracking similar on that. And it's tough to articulate this point. Again, I thought of this about an hour ago, sitting here listening to it.
Yeah.
But I think that the formula used, and I would make the case, this is where potentially if we could get more time to sit down and talk these things through. I'll be the first to admit, I didn't really know about this very much until about a month ago. Shame on me. I could have been more aware of all this stuff going on. It just never clicked for me exactly what was happening, what could happen, where it was going. As soon as I understood it, I wanted to know as much as I could, and that's why I'm here tonight. But I think there's a lot of smart people in this room on both sides of this table, and make it time bound if we're going to extend this thing. Like, let's set the dates, let's set the time, let's get together and not leave it open-ended. And let's try and come up with those dynamic solutions that can fix this. I mean, other ones that I was thinking of. So I've built in areas where it's not one park district, there's multiple. And growth pays for growth. You can do that in a way where certain areas, based on what's around it and the city already owns for, say, parks, that area, that district might need to pay more in impact fees. If I'm developing on the other side of town and there's a lot of existing infrastructure, speaking to parks, maybe that has a lower impact fee because there's more parks readily available to it. Again, it's a dynamic issue, and I think there's creative solutions that could come up with it. I also don't know if in the laws and regulations that govern the city, if you're allowed to have multiple park districts for that and 2 impact fees. I'm not sure.
We cannot. There's different recreation districts out there, but we have one park impact. We can split it up, but City of Star is not big enough for that. If you're in the city of Meridian or Boise, I can see that, but we're not. We go from Chinden up to the foothills here, from Kingsbury to Palmer. That's it.
Yeah, no, I get it. It's not a big area.
Right.
But if there was a way to work within the rules that are in front of everybody, maybe there's a creative solution that can come from it. Again, the stair stepping of the fees, I think that would be helpful. I would strongly encourage looking at like the police impact fee, because it's going from 0 to one of them. Maybe that's one that gets stepped in over a couple-year period. On the park one, I would really encourage you to look at some kind of vesting period from when fees are implemented to give developers, home builders, everybody who's made substantial investments to go build those homes at the fees that they understood at the time that they bought the land. Supply helps with that pricing. I know that I will want to start more homes if I have if there's a time clock going of when I'm going to get this impact fee, I'm going to want to get that going. And on a larger, I think that's one that should really be looked at. Again, I know I'm out of time. I appreciate the discussion. I'm also happy to answer any other questions. More time and us all sitting down, I think there's solutions that we can come up with here. And I really appreciate that.
Okay.
Any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Okay, we're gonna do our next one here. What time is it? 9. Do we need a break? Do one more? It's a 10-minute one. Okay. All right, Mr. Carter. Carter, did I say that right? You're
Mr. Mayor, City Council members, my name is Carter Froelich. I'm the Managing Principal of Launch Development Finance Advisors. Address for the business 4800 North Scottsdale Road, Suite 1400 in Scottsdale, Arizona. And this has been a really interesting conversation, and hopefully I can share some insight from my experience. So we were asked by the BCA to review the Clearwater Financials Development Impact Fee Study. The one that I took a look at was dated February 2nd, 2026, and I understand there had been some updates subsequent to that. But before I get started, you're probably wondering, who the hell is this guy and why are we listening? So let me tell you a little bit about who I am and why I'm here. We started financing public infrastructure for the public sector about 40 years ago. As part of that, as we were financing infrastructure, we needed to determine, because we were building facilities that were impact fee creditable, we needed to understand that we weren't getting double dipped, so we had to determine our impact fee credits. And for Councilman Nielsen, I am a CPA, I'm not an attorney, but that's how we got into looking at impact fee studies, and many times they were wrong. Things didn't add up, things didn't tick and tie to the CIP, and so we started correcting errors on impact fees, and that's how we got into this business. I've been doing it for about 35 years. I co-authored the National Association of Home Builders Impact Fee Handbook. I've been an expert witness in numerous development impact fees litigations, some of which have been in Idaho. And as our clients have indicated previously, our firm believes that growth should pay for growth. It just has to be fair and equitable. We don't have a dog in the fight. We just look at what case law is. Here again, I'm not an attorney, but I can read. And we know what the enabling statutes are. And so we can just see, does the statute adhere, or does the study adhere to statute? So with that as a little background, we took a look at the impact fee study with really two purposes in mind. Number one, is it compliant with Idaho code? And number two, is it compliant with industry standards and case law? Here again, we've been involved in a lot of different impact fee studies over the years, and we've come to understand all these issues, and we can get into a lot of them because I've got the statute on my phone for the Nevada code, and we can dig into the detail if you want. To cut to the chase, and what I'm here to talk to you about is that our opinion is that the impact fee study that we took a look at, and that has been modified slightly, but it hasn't addressed the big issues, is not compliant with Idaho code for industry standards. At present, the fees are overstated. Simple as that. So what are the real big issues? I believe you have a copy of our letter. You can take a look at this. I think it's part of your agenda package. What I wanted to do today is really talk about 5 major issues and then offer a recommendation on what we can do to get to the next step. So number one, fee study is not compliant. I'm going to get into what we can do. So for Councilman Nielsen, you're not an attorney. How did you come up with this? Well, we took the code. We just listed it out in a matrix, and we just went down the line. Okay, are impact fees paying for capital improvements? First one out the bat, no. And well, and why are they not paying for capital improvements? Because they're paying for leased facilities as well. No matter how much you want to talk about, oh, I got to provide a level of service, I got to do this, I got to do that. Levels of service are based on capital improvements. Streets, roads, water, sewer, how many miles of roads do you have? How many capacity in your wastewater treatment plant? How big is your city hall? How many fire trucks do you have? Capital assets. So it was really interesting to take a look at your auditor up here, you're talking about revenues and expenses, and your lease facilities are running through your income statement as an expense. They're not showing up on the balance sheet. We can talk about your balance sheet. The only one that I could find was 2022. After the audit or the auditor talked today, I understand why. So we can talk about what your capital assets were valued in 2022. They were valued at 8.7 million in 2022, and that includes everything. But if we're taking a look right now at what your parks and police are valued at, they're valued at 90 million according to your impact fee study. But I digress. So first and foremost, the fee study has to relate to capital assets. You'll see in Exhibit A, which we have attached as an exhibit to the letter. Here are the things that where it's compliant. Here are the things that are not. Number two, the capital assets are overvalued at replacement costs rather than depreciated replacement costs. So we all know, I believe the city of Star was incorporated in 1997. I think it's been around since the early 1900s. You guys have a lot of assets. All of those are not brand new. So your level of service is for a bunch of assets, capital improvements that have different, were constructed at different times. However, they're being valued as if they're brand new right now, including the lease facilities. Your indoor courts were valued at $400 a square foot. You don't even own a lease facility, you lease one, but you're valuing it at $400. So what we, and the levels of service is really an accounting exercise. You have to understand that. You go through and you list every asset that the city owns, and then you apply a replacement cost to that. If I were to replace this swing set, this fire station, whatever it is, this fire truck, this police car, it would be $52,000 today. What we're saying is, well, that car, or that car is probably not a good example with the 10-year life, but if we were going to replace, that is a 50-year-old or 20-year-old swing set. It's not worth the same today, because it's an old swing set. And so what we're trying to do is to represent what the real level of service is, what the real quality of those assets are, and new growth will pay for that existing level of service, not as if it was just replaced. So that's why we're saying that we should take a look at the replacement costs. That's fine, but then depreciated back. So we're looking at a depreciated replacement cost value, because that is more indicative of what the existing level of service of that capital asset is providing to the residents. And number three, and I believe this was addressed by Christy today, but when we looked at the analysis dated February 2nd, there was no analysis of city offsets. We just wanted to make sure that we're not double dipping, that new growth is paying a tax, a user fee, something for which the city is collecting an impact fee. We saw some mention to it in the narrative. However, we didn't see an actual analysis. Appreciate the analysis that was provided today by Christy. The other big thing that we need to chat about is the fact that within all of these existing improvements that you want to make for police and parks, the city has to come up with $30 million to pay its fair share of those new capital improvements. And there is no description on how the city is going to come up with that money, whether those are even realistic ideas that you can come up with $30 million to fund your fair share. And if you're not funding your fair share, then the development community and the new growth is paying for a level of a service that will never exist. And last but not least, we talked about the capital facilities. And if you want to geek out on statute, talking about levels of service, what is a public improvement, what is a capital improvement, I'm happy to read from statute for you. But to give you an idea of what's to give you a question, here's this may be helpful in talking with what adding leased facilities does to the levels of service. So pursuant to the fee study that I looked at dated February the 2nd, the total levels of service for parkland amenities, facilities, et cetera, is $55 million, which includes all of those leased facilities, which are on the books in the fee study at the square footage times $400 a square foot. Here again, those aren't capital assets of the city. That is an operating expense that you are funding to pay somebody so that they can come and use the facilities. And if you want to learn how you can, keep that level of service, well, charge for it, but it's not a capital facility in the meaning of what impact fees can be used for. So if I can go back, let me just, oops, what are you?
You got a few minutes, you're out of your time.
Okay, I'll stand for questions.
Can you show me in our code where it says we have to use your accounting principles that you're talking?
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's an.
Okay, when you say codes, what are you referring to?
In my impact fee code right here that I have, that I've read through about 8 million times in the last 5 months. Nothing in here tells me that I have to use the principles on
Doesn't
how
say you have to
describing
use
it.
replacement costs either.
Well, that's
And
that's
if you
the,
look at Bow versus Seattle, here's a law case. You may want to
Actually,
take a look.
Mayor Chadwick, I'm sorry. Yes, actually, it does.
So-
It does say you have to use that.
Show me where.
Yeah, so chapter 82, the statute requires impact fees to be based on adopted level of service.
Correct. Well, I agree with that.
And it says the fee must not exceed by a proportionate share of the cost of system improvements. It also said,
You said cost?
cost of system
Okay,
improvements.
what is the
It
definition?
also says impact fees must be based on actual system improvement costs or reasonable estimates of such costs.
Actual improvement costs, so then we're really looking at book value,
Why-
correct?
why
You said-
would-
You said
why-
actual cost.
No, it's got nothing to do with depreciation or book value. Why
You-
would
No,
it?
you said actual
Why-
cost. So
why
actual
wouldn't a-
cost in
excuse me, why wouldn't
1997?
the capital improvement project be based on actual costs? Are you familiar with CapEx and OpEx expenditures and
Versus Seattle says.
capital, investment capital?
That's what, if maybe your city attorney would like to take a look at Bow versus Seattle. It says it should be book value, and that means actual cost depreciated. So
So
we're giving the city the benefit of the doubt going to replacement.
you're a
saying
CPA, you're
depreciated.
familiar with GAAP and
Oh,
FASBA, probably GASBA too, right?
Huh?
So,
Correct.
so in what accounting practice would you ever do a capital improvement plan based on depreciated or book value?
Capital improve, so what is your definition of a capital improvement?
Well, it's standard. We're talking
Well,
generally
yeah,
accepted
let's make
accounting
sure.
principles.
There's been a lot of misinformation going back and forth. What is,
I'm not a CPA,
what is-
but you are.
No,
So
but you're a
financial
city
accounting
official.
standards.
You
board,
should know what
is
a
the definition of a capital improvement project.
what is a capital improvement plan?
the capital improvements.
Plan is a plan of assets or infrastructure that a city wants to build, and it goes out and gets a bid or an engineering cost estimate so that it can construct that facility over time. That's my definition. I don't know what yours is.
So when you go to invest for capital investment, are you buying something new? Are you?
No.
For your,
I'm
I'm
trying to-
not talking about like brand new out of the factory.
You're
talking some,
going like this.
no, I'm not.
No, you don't understand what a level of service.
Tell me
is.
what I'm doing. Stay with me.
So hang on a sec, guys. Here, we're going to keep some respectfulness up here.
Well, yeah,
I-
but
so
it
this
goes
is- here
both
we are
ways.
here.
Goes both ways.
So we're the level of service and capital improvements defined in our code.
Go for it.
And that's what we're going off of.
I don't care about your code. I care about the statute.
Then we're
I
done.
care
Well,
about
that is our statute right here. Our code and our stat. This is not the city of Stars
Yeah,
code.
okay.
This is the state of Idaho code.
Okay, so tell me, I've read the code. In fact, I've gone through the code with your fee
And
schedule.
if you don't care about it, then this conversation's fruitless.
Sir, I thought you were referring to a city code, which I have never seen.
City code, you need to care about city code too.
But I'm telling you how, you guys are going to do what you're going to do. I've seen this 100 times. And I understand why you're doing it. I get it. I see how big this community is growing. I see what you want to the city to be. But I'm just telling you, the way you're going about it is not pursuant to case law.
Okay, any further
So-
questions? Any further? No?
Care about
Okay, all right.
I do know about your code.
That's,
In fact, I've got it here.
it is actually 9:28 and we're going to adjourn for 10 minutes so we could take a facilities break. Okay, and then we'll come back to public testimony. All right. We're going to call the Star City Council meeting back to order. And we're going to continue on with our public testimony for the City of Star capital improvement plans and development impact fees for parks and police. So now we're on to Miss Daphne. You can't get out of this one. Well, you can if you want, but yeah, all right.
Everybody might hate me at the end, but it's okay.
Oh, hang on one sec, just for, real quick, so we can get this. There we go. All right, please state your name and address for the record, and just for the record, we came back on at 3:38. Sorry, I forgot to say that.
You should have a
Yeah,
timer.
9:38. Sorry, 9:38, wrong time.
Oh, there it is. I like it. Okay.
All right, Ms. Daphne, state your name and address, please, for the record.
My name is Daphne Sosa, and my address is 12596 West Kempshire Court.
Okay, go
Thank you. And I wanted to hear things first. My grandfather was a builder. My father was a builder. I'm a contractor and a realtor too. And I've been working with builders here for a long time. 3 of the builders that I have worked with live in Star, building Star, and building other places. My concern is if the impact fees are not paid by the builders, they're paid by me. I don't want to sell my house. I love my house. I don't want to have to pay more money in taxes because my house goes up in price. There's old ladies in Boise that they're losing their houses that they don't have to pay anything on because they already paid the whole house because they can't afford the taxes. So that's one of my concerns. Another concerns, I like subdivisions that are beautiful and they're wonderful, but because if those subdivisions have something good, that doesn't mean that kids that are poor can get there and use those things. I love the City Star. I think you're doing great things. I think using a facility for more than one thing is amazing. Using a car for 10 years is amazing. Just because the government said, oh, you have to spend the budget, you have to waste money. My husband had worked with the government before and he hated it. If you don't use it, you lose it. You have to use it now. Use it on whatever. So you won't lose it, you know? So I really love how our city works. What you are doing is great. I do not like that companies like CBH got prime land in the hills when a lot of the builders that are here cannot compete. They're trying to build affordable homes. They're trying to do what they can. But then if the other builders are getting the amazing land, the views and all that stuff that we have in this city, what is left, you know, it's been approved for them to have that land. What are these builders going to have left, you know? So that's part of the things that I'm thinking about. And I would love if I like the part that they can do a park or do something like that. It would be nice to do things like the food bank. They're builders. It's going to be cheaper for them to build it than the food bank to buy it. You know, like if they do this building, that's an example. We don't have a Head Start here in Star. Kids that need to go to Head Start have to go all the way to South Meridian and be in a bus for many hours or take the bus by Fred Meyer, last time I checked. You know, there's different things that we can have, that we can do. And when I moved here, was in 2008. And what I loved from Star was when I drove by, there was a little house right here that ended up being demolished that had flowers and a picket fence. It was beautiful. Star is changing, and I would love if things can be more homey and not just building next to the road. I like to see the mountains when I'm driving, and I would love for the builders to be able to have chances and not have to be like CBH, Hobo Homes is taking everything and they have nothing left.
Okay.
That's what I want to say.
All right, hang on one sec there, Ms. Daphne. I just want to make sure I understand what you're asking. At one point, you said you didn't want to pay impact fees on your house?
No, I'm just saying if they don't pay the impact fees, you know, if
I
they
got
don't
you.
pay for grow, then I pay for grow.
Okay, gotcha. Now I understand that. Okay.
And one of the builders mentioned that maybe nobody want to buy houses that don't have granite and all that stuff. I think my kids will buy it.
Okay.
I will buy it. I don't mind downsizing, but we're building for outsiders.
Okay. Got it. Thank you so much. Any questions for Ms. Daphne? Sorry, I forgot to ask. Okay, thank you. You're good. All right, Matt Brasper.
My phone's got 3%, so it might die. At that point, I will just ad lib and go off.
Better hurry.
All right. Matt Brasper, address is 586 North Evelyn Way, Star, Idaho, 83669. I grew up here, so I would like to bring a different perspective than has been heard so far this evening. Chose to buy my home here. I recreate here. I make a point to shop local whenever I can here. I choose to invest in this community and enjoy everything that this town has to offer. I volunteer in this place. I stay engaged because of the people who call it home, because this place, it matters very deeply to me. And it's exactly for that reason that I stand before you all this evening to say that I strongly support increasing park impact fees and adopting public safety impact fees. I want to ground my remarks in the simple and fair principle that growth simply must pay for growth. We are experiencing in real time the life cycle of a city. We were small once, but we're growing up. And growth, if not properly managed, does not preserve what we love about Star. It erodes it. Our parks, our safety, our quality of life are all under increasing pressure from the pace of development in this town. You look on any social media right now, council and mayor, you realize that the community is on your side with this decision. For years, our impact fees have not kept up with inflation. The real cost of infrastructure, land, construction, the materials have all increased significantly, yet our fees have remained largely unchanged. When we fail to adjust them, we are making a choice. We are choosing to subsidize growth. Because when growth doesn't pay for itself, someone else does. And that means more crowded parks, stretched services, and a gradual decline in the quality of life that brought people here in the first place. Impact fees are not anti-growth. They are not what make responsible growth possible. They ensure that development contributes its fair share and allows us to grow without falling behind. Many of you on this dais ran on this principle that growth should pay for growth. This is the moment to follow through. We are no longer a small town reacting to change. We are a city shaping its future. And I urge you to act, update these fees, adopt public safety impact fees, and send a clear message that in the city of Star, growth will pay for growth. Thank you.
Any questions for Matt?
My phone didn't die, so I got.
All right. Well, then you're done.
I do have 30 seconds. I will also say on this question of affordability, if I didn't purchase my house 5 years ago, I would not probably be standing here right now. It wouldn't be impossible. So all this question about affordability, Star's really a difficult place to get into because a lot of people want to live here. There's a high demand to live here, and we should place a high demand on the people who want to build here for that reason. So thank you guys and gal. Thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Turnipseed.
John Turnipseed, 11725 West Caribbean Inlet Drive in Star. Let me go out of the weeds and talk about this from the 30,000-foot view real quick. I've worked on some of the city committees. I've worked with Ada County Highway District on some of this wonderful topic we're talking about here tonight. Your eyes will glaze over with all the legal mumbo jumbo, so I'm not going to talk about that. When you talk about impact fees, you immediately think of developers penciling whether it's going to be profitable. Talk about home and business owners concerned about the value and the cost of their property. But that's normal. Nobody thinks about the backside of it though. Once all of new people have moved in, the builders have built out, they've gone down the road to the next project, we're left with a changed community. We came here to this community because we like the environment, we like the services. It's now grown exponentially. It's now put a challenge on the environment. We can't do much about that. It's put a challenge to the services. We can work on those things. Therefore, that's why we're here tonight in this room. You guys have the unenviable position of sitting up there and making a decision about raising prices. Not fun, but necessary. Bottom line, we've talked for years about the concept of development pays for itself. That's why I believe, from what I've seen in all my experience, it's time that we ask the developers to step up and ask the new folks moving in to pay a little bit more. It's an unintended consequence of growth. It demands our services, it challenges it. We have to pay for it. So I'm asking the developers and the new folks to help pay for that. It's just the way it is. That's fair and equitable from my concern. Bottom line is, if we don't do this and we don't do something to take care of these costs, we're kind of de facto subsidizing development in a certain extent. Very minor, but subsidizing. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay, any questions? All right, thank you, sir.
Okay.
All right. Michael.
Honorable Mayor and Council, I'm Michael Keys, 338 South Long Bay Way here in Star. Like most of the people voting or who are testifying in favor of this, I'm actually from Star. A lot of the people you heard opposing it are not from Star. When you were elected and sworn in, you all took an oath to honor and follow the Constitution of the U.S. and the state of Idaho. But you ran because you care about Star, and you were elected because the people who voted for you thought that you would take care of Star. And part of that is keeping up with impact fees. I know, for instance, our park impact fees have not been updated in quite some time. I think we're overdue with that. It's supposed to every 5 years, and it's been way more than 5 years. We've never had public safety impact fees, but you look at other cities around us, Meridian, Boise, Eagle, they all have public safety impact fees. So we're really behind the 8 ball. We really need to add that so that we can take care of our public safety. I'd also like to talk about, it was brought up earlier that we need $30 million in city funds to match the part of the development that we would not be covered by impact fees. Well, the city has half that in the bank. We had a presentation earlier tonight. We've raised that in the last 10 years. I'm sure in the next 10 years, we can get the other half of the 30 million. So and plus, we haven't even attempted to go for grants. There was an example brought up about swings and whether it's a replacement cost or a depreciated cost. So let me explain it to you this way. I got 3 kids who are in 3 swings in Star, and they're swinging their little tail feathers off. They're just having a blast, okay? And some years down the road, we've doubled in size, and now I got 6 kids who want to be in the swing. So I got to go buy 3 more swings, okay? Well, if I paid $20,000 for those swings 10 years ago, now they're depreciated to $5,000. It's going to cost me, $50,000 to buy new swings. Does that mean I have to only pay $5,000 for the new swings, or do I get to pay $50,000 to get 3 swings? Because that's what 3 new swings cost today. Because I need 3 new swings. Okay. Well, common sense tells you that you're going to have to pay what it costs to pay for swings now, because nobody's going to sell you $50,000 worth of swings for $5,000, or what it costs, years and years ago. I'd also like to say, our parks in Star are something that we look at as a gem for us. We were at the Easter extravaganza here last weekend. Who was there? A lot of us were there, right? Okay, who remembers, 5-8 years ago, we used to have that at Blake Park. Remember that? Well, why don't we have it at Blake Park anymore? Because we outgrew it. More people came to the area, more people came to the region, and we just outgrew Blake Park. We have to have it at a bigger facility. We've taken our chili cook-off. We used to have that, over at Hunters Creek, but we don't have it there anymore. Now we have it over at the River House because we outgrew it. More people came to Star, more people came to the region, and we needed a bigger facility to do that. Star's parks are where our community is defined. These are the events in our parks that define us. So
You're out of time, Michael.
Okay, I'm out of time. Any questions?
Any questions for Michael or comments?
Yeah, more of a comment. I know that Easter egg hunt started in our yard and it outgrew that.
Okay, yeah.
So
He's the OG for the Easter egg hunt.
Absolutely.
it started in the common area in Shooting Star right next to our house. Appreciate your comments, and swings are a great analogy, but you're never going to outgrow my swings.
No.
Just for David,
your swings are priceless, though.
For David Hershey's sake, I thought I'd throw that in.
Right. All right. Thank you, Michael.
Okay, thank you.
Miss Sarah?
Okay. Yay, it's movable. Hi, I'm Sarah Keys. I live at 338 South Long Bay Way in Star, Idaho. I did not have much time to prepare for this, but I'll give you what I have. I'm a realtor. I sell homes. I know what this impact fee is going to do to the cost of houses. What I want to talk about, though, is the profit that these developers have made over the last 15 years on all the homes they've sold. There has not been an impact fee increase in more than 15 years. Okay? Now we're going to ask them to catch up and pay what would be required in this day and time. So let's just take one of the big developers here. We'll build a subdivision, approximately 120 homes. That's an $80,000 profit on each house. It's a $9.6 million project. That's what they're going to take home on it. And they're worried about this $7,000 or whatever our impact fee amount total is going to be. Like I said, I didn't get to do a lot of research on it. So what I'm thinking is all these big developers who have come in here and made millions of dollars off of our community while we tried to get our police department, and we were very fiscally responsible with all of our funds and our money. And now they're worried, and they have the audacity to say, can we have more time? What do you mean? I listened to what was presented. We've had public open houses. We've had all kinds of information put out there for you. The Boise Real Estate Commission, they've had all this information. Why didn't they come to the table? Why didn't they show up at one of these meetings that the committee had and voice their opinions and their reasons against it at that time? They had plenty of time to do it. They didn't. So we have seen, and our growth explains everything. We're an anomaly. The gentleman from Arizona, I think, is talking about, well, we aren't Arizona. We are STAR. We have seen growth 3 to 10 times the amount of other little cities. And you guys have done such an incredible job. Yes, I voted for each one of you. I can say that. So STAR is growing 10 times faster. That's a total growth rate of 270%. A current trend still annually around the world, the country is 8 to 10%. We surpassed that a long time ago. So every subdivision that's been going on in here, if it's a small one, it's about a $4 to $6 million profit. If it's large, it's $10 to $15 million. I don't want them quibbling about our fees. They need to pay it. They need to pay for our growth that we've been covering and building these beautiful parks, because location is everything. That's why the cost of housing in STAR is expensive, because we have a beautiful community. People want to live here. So it is our location, and that does drive the cost. And they've benefited from it. They have made millions and millions and millions of dollars, and they want to quibble about a couple $1,000s. I don't have time for it. My last and final thing is lower fees in the past didn't eliminate our costs. They delayed them. Today's increases are simply catching up to 15 years of growth. Oh, I have 2 more seconds. And finally, I'd like to say that this isn't a spike. It's a 15 years of compounding finally showing up in bigger dollar amounts. So the carpetbaggers have to pay for what they've made off of us.
Okay.
I'll stand for any questions.
Any questions for Miss Sarah?
Okay.
Well, thank you, Sarah. Appreciate it. Dwayne?
Follow that. Hi, Mayor, Council, Dwayne Norman, 1077 Bonot Lake Place here in Star. There's half of that's what I wanted to say, but I want to use the example of the growth. Like, we already are past need when you use Little League. My son's in Little League. We have what, 2, 3 fields here? 3/4. We have one playing spot here. The other 3 are outside. We're playing at school. School practice fields is where we're playing our Little League games. So if we have 2 Little League fields here that are leased, we own them outright, depreciation, whatever you want to say. And now all of a sudden we have so many kids that we need 4 baseball fields. Should the current residents here pay for those 2 extra fields? No, growth should definitely pay for itself. Okay. And this 80, 90, 100% step up, the step up is pay now. You've had 10 years of building here with no impact or very little impact fees. So you've had 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, and now we're going to add $5,100. Okay. And I don't know if that number is correct, but somebody said the average home price now in Star is $620,000. Is $5,000 going to affect affordability? Or is it going to affect profitability? Okay. You all, again, I'm pretty sure all of you ran in protecting Star. You work for the people, not for the developers. Okay. I'm on the committee, and the way I understood the whole presentation 2 or 3 times when it comes to the police cars, 10 years or no years, is basically we're paying to double the police force. We need double the police officers, and we need a car for every one of those police officers. How hard is that? We need it because the people are moving here and pay for it. Okay. I'm coming from a place that was ruined because they waited too long to put on the impact fees. Okay. I'm not from Star, but I moved here. I loved it. And I believe the impact fees are 100% necessary. I don't mind paying it, you know? Talk about affordability, $5,000, that doesn't even pay for a sprinkler system, let alone, God forbid, I don't know if y'all priced any of these houses lately, but you change from this countertop to that countertop, way more than $5,000. So I don't think it has anything to do with affordability. I think it's 100% profitability. And Star, we're lucky as builders, I'm not a builder, but we're lucky that Star doesn't have a road impact fee. I know ACHD does, but that's going to be the biggest pain point is the roads. So I beg you to stay on top of ACHD, to do everything you can to stay on top of the roads, because that's going to be the biggest part. And real quick, the parks, I was down at the Easter egg hunt. This formula, you can ask Christine, this formula does not account for the people who come into Star and use the parks. Okay? That Easter egg hunt, I guarantee you, hundreds of people that were at that thing were not from Star. So this formula doesn't even account for us supporting. We're such a gem. We're supporting the surrounding areas. You know, Middleton, where they have anything like we have? So where do you think those people come trick or treating? Where do you think they come to Easter egg hunts? You know, so that formula doesn't do anything to calculate for that. So I think we're already behind the 8 ball. Dude, that one guy got like 10 minutes.
That's all right. He got 10 minutes. You don't get 10 minutes.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. All right. That is all that signed up. No questions. Yep. Any questions for Dwayne? Nope. Okay. Those of you that signed up that didn't want to speak will be noted on the record, either for, or against, or neutral on this. Christy, you want to come up? And you got 10 minutes. Yeah. 10. No, 10's good. That's my.
Christine Stoll, Clearwater Financial, for the record.
Okay.
So I did take notes, and I'll just try and hit some of these. Let's see. So one of the things I think I'd like to state is that the city does need to plan as though there are no partnerships, right? They can't plan on ifs or whens or could be's or should be's. So if if in the future there's donations of land and that sort of thing, and the city of Star has been really lucky to have lots of their land donated, and they would seek those partnerships in the future. They have a commitment to do that, as well as looking at all other options to fund things. But they can't just sit around and wait for people to be do-gooders. They have to plan for their city. So I just want to make that statement, and that's part of this. Let's see. So we did hear about depreciated costs, and I would say there's a differing of opinion about what our Idaho code says. We read the code saying that it needs to be replacement costs or estimated costs of replacement costs. So there was a statement that the city has no rec center. I disagree. The city does have a rec center. There was also some statements about a shared space, and we're not sharing any space. We are leasing from the fire department, but it's not shared. The fire department isn't using the space currently. Someday they might need it, but currently we are, meaning the city is using that. I also want to say that Adam had mentioned that he'd like to sit down and engage in a meaningful way. And as the mayor had indicated, I felt like we did do that. A couple times we had hour and a half meetings with many members of the BCA and developer folks. And we did take note. We read all of their feedback and we discussed it at length. And so whether or not they agree as to the remedy, I do feel like there was plenty of time to have some transparency with the groups. Let's see. I think it's probably important to talk about the level of service. I think that's getting a little bit confused. So you have the report in front of you, and there's a couple good examples, like on page 39 for police. of the report, where we're saying the level of service is what we're trying to calculate what we currently have, or for parks, right? So we say, this is the level of service currently of parks. We have this many park acres versus this many divided by, this many thousand residents. And it gives us a number. That number is then to think forward, we reverse engineer it, if you will. And we times it by what the new population is going to be, and it gives us a difference. And that difference is what we can charge for an impact fee. Now, there's been a lot of discussion about level of service and can we include leased space or not. And as we've talked, I think at length during this, we read the code to say that it is not prohibited to use lease space. We didn't find anything saying that there was any case law stating otherwise. So we also indicated that that is how STAR is providing those services, happens to be in lease space. But when we are looking at our assets and so forth, we use that as a way to look at, okay, do we currently have something? And does it have a useful life? And are we going to need more of that, right? So there was some concern about equipment and vehicles. There are municipalities throughout Idaho that are using in their impact fees, throughout Idaho that are using or have in their impact fees in their CIPs equipment as well as vehicles for parks and police. So it's not an anomaly, and it does happen here in Idaho. There's several, Boise, Nampa, there's Haley, there's quite a few of them. So it's not that it has never happened. Maybe it's not happening everywhere in every CIP, but it certainly does happen in Idaho. Let's see. See how much time I have left. So again, there was a questioning of the 10-year useful life of equipment and vehicles. And so as I explained during this project, we did take an inventory of all the assets, and it's very clear that the city does have those pieces of equipment that have lasted more than 10 years, as well as many vehicles. Almost every single park vehicle some of them are 20 years and they're still chugging along. So it's not that it doesn't have a useful life. It certainly does, because the city is using that, as well as the equipment. Not every single piece of equipment was included. So you might have, as I said, you would have some trimmers and so forth that have a useful life that was indicated as 2 years. That wasn't used. We only used things that were 10 years or more. And I guess I want to talk about, there was a comment about, and I'm not sure if this is what he was trying to ask, but if park space was accounted for with developers in the 117 that we need to plan for. And I think to make certain, there is a section 6, it's credits and offsets. So if a developer comes and negotiates with the city, and the city wants to make that part of the development agreement, and it's donated land, there is an opportunity for a credit or an offset to happen for that developer, so that it doesn't have to pay the impact fees or a proportion of it or whatever it would be. And then likely, yes, the city would then, if it's going to be a city park or whatever asset, they would not need to purchase that, right? It would just come off. But that isn't a given, and that's a negotiated, per case thing, but it is accounted for. There was also a lot of talk about how is the city going to come up with their extra funding. Well, again, we don't know. We don't have a crystal ball to know exactly when that's going to happen, but the city has made they have said, we will look at any and all funding options that come about at the time of that project. Well, some of these projects aren't going to happen for 10 years, so we don't know what's going to even be available. As I stated, there isn't any grants currently. We don't have any donations. You know, we don't have any extra things that could offset that right now. But that's not to say that couldn't change in 5 years when that project comes up. So the city makes that that assertion that they will commit to that. And then I wanted to talk about the launch report. So in that report, there's 40 some ideas, 40 some, you know, things that we have to have for the impact fee. And in the report, it indicated that it's not, it doesn't meet, it's invalid basically. But there was only 3 things on their list that they said no to. And we don't agree with those no's. And there was a couple that said not determinable. But they are determinable. So, you know, that's like, how are they going to pay for it? What are their offsets? You know, what are their life cycles, that sort of thing. So we've already explained all of that. Mostly their report indicates that they don't agree with leased space. And then some, and also about the accounting, about it should be depreciated assets, which we have already covered, that we have a differing of opinion based on Idaho. We also, there was, you know, quite a few things in the report saying that it didn't exist, but it's, you know, there are quite a few pages in our report that point back to the things that they say don't exist, such as it doesn't identify how the city will fund the $30 million, but we do state in the CIP, we cite Idaho code that says we will look at any and all of these as stated, which is property tax, grant, bonds, user fees, state revenue share, all of those things. But again, we don't know what that's going to look like until the project comes about. I mean, I think it's all just been said, and I think we've, you know, done a pretty good job of laying out that the concerns that the developer group has, we just don't feel are valid, and that they have been covered in the impact fee study. And so with that, I'll stand for any additional questions.
Any questions for Christy? Now's our chance. Now's your chance. Councilman Nielsen? You were reaching for your mic, so I didn't know. You're formulating thoughts?
Formulating thoughts. If somebody else has a current one they want to go
Councilwoman?
first, that's fine.
I'll take a stab at a question. So in regarding the assets and the total number that's included, so 8.7 million, which was on like our auditor's report in assets, versus the 95 million that is in the in this information here tonight. So is that, help me understand, I guess just the reason, help me understand the difference for that reason. So we have lease space, right? That makes up adds to that 95 million, to get to that 95 million. And then there's also some, like the police cars, and depreciation, I'm guessing. Would that be correct?
You know, to be honest, I'm not sure exactly how in your audits, I don't think you had everything listed and that we listed, right? So, you know, did you list in your audit all of your park assets, meaning the acres that you have and the replacement costs for that? I don't think that's listed in there. And so it's not apples to apples, if you will.
Yes.
And so while I appreciate that they looked at the audit from 2022, they're not the same things that they were looking at. So it's, you know, I mean, it's not apples to apples.
So that's not.
It's not a fair assessment.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you look at the assets that we're looking at, okay, well, what acreages do you have? Then we have to come about and say, well, how much would that be to replace that? We agreed on the number of 185 if we had to buy land. We agreed with that group on that number. Now, as we all know, had this been 10, 15 years ago, that number would have been a lot less than 185, right? And so, you know, we have to then look up at what it would cost to develop that acreage. And so that's not going to be in an audit, right? And so when we look at the square footages and if we have to rebuild something, we're also not looking at that in an audit of what the rebuilding cost is. So it's not really the same comparison.
Okay.
Thank you.
Further questions? Councilman, you got another one?
No, go
Councilwoman?
ahead.
Councilman Nielsen?
Thank you. Why do we use acres as the unit of measure
For the parks,
for parks and rec?
because that's the space that you use currently.
Why wouldn't we use our cameras that are posted at every park, count the number of people that go to the parks, count the number of people that register for park programs, and say a number of residents per thousand that use a park or sign up for our Parks and Rec program?
So the interesting thing about impact fees is it doesn't have to be, you get to choose what your measurement's going to be. Now, this is a very, using acreages is very common for parks. And so you get to use it and it has to be reasonable, right? What you're going to use. And we chose to use acreage because that's what you're going to need more of is space for people to recreate, right?
So would you, I know you're not an attorney, but we've had lots of non-attorney people testifying here tonight. Would you say that that could be an explanation why the Idaho code is silent on whether assets versus leased or CapEx versus operational?
I mean, it could be. I would hate to contemplate on why Idaho code is absent or quiet.
But could a reasonable person say one unit of measure is equal to another unit of measure, regardless of whether it was an asset or a leased space, or counting an individual who signed up for a program?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, I think you can't quantify for every single thing, every possibility.
But a reasonable unit of measure qualifies as measurement for level of service.
That's correct. Yes.
And I just want to, you're on the acres thing versus people thing still, right?
I'm on unit of measurement and calculation of level of service.
Okay. Our comprehensive plan determines that our acres per thousand is our level of service.
I understood.
Okay, I just want to make sure that that's on the record.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
What I'm seeking for in this hearing, because we're making a decision tonight, potentially, I mean, we could table it, but we're making a decision ultimately in this hearing on whether or not this proposal is compliant with Idaho code and Star City code, and is in the best interest of the citizens of Star. And I include when I say citizens of Star, I will also include the developers who own property in the city of Star. You may not live here, you may not be a citizen who votes here, but you own property here and are affected by this too. So just want to make sure that everybody understands that. So, okay, so I think you've answered my question on that. I want to shift gears a little bit to something in the report to the police training center.
Before you go there, can I just make one
Yeah.
comment about your last? Somebody had mentioned that they felt like the calculation was off in meaning not a specific calculation, but how these things were calculated. And it's not really a choice, it's by state code, how things must be calculated. So I guess I just wanted to put that out there is that we have to follow code. We can identify what measure we're going to use, but the calculation is an Idaho code. It's not a STAR thing, and it's not a, impact fee thing, meaning per, we get to choose that. It very clearly states how you calculate that.
Well, so let me kind of build on that just a little bit and on my previous line of questioning. So let's say that our comprehensive plan didn't specify that we use acres, but we could use people who actually use the service. If we were accurate in that number, on par with how accurate we are with the acreage, again, hypothetically, that we were able to do that, would the cost of delivery of service change?
Can you ask me that in a different way so I understand?
Would the resulting recommended fee be different if we used a different unit of measure that was on par with the one that we're using currently today?
I think that depends. If you don't need, the unit of measure is acres, and so we need more of those. And acres happen to be pretty expensive right now here. And so if we were using people per se, I mean,
Well, we purchase acres, but we don't purchase people.
right.
But again, this isn't about the acres or the people.
Right.
It's about the service that's provided. So the cost of providing that service, if we measured using people, for example, we would still have to determine in a capital improvement plan to buy additional acres.
Mhm.
We would justify that based on the number of people that are being provided.
That would be true. Yes.
So would it reasonably,
It would be the same.
yes, thank you. Okay. For the police training facility,
Mhm.
this is an area of the report that I'm struggling to, I guess, align myself with. Help me understand how. So I'll just share why. Today, the city of Star does not have a police training facility, and that's provided by the Ada County Sheriff. We contract with the Ada County Sheriff's Department. We have a reasonable expectation under that contract that they provide us with trained officers and that those officers will maintain a level of training and capability for the duration of that contract. Based on that, I'm not seeing that STAR today has a level of service related to police training facility. Can you help me understand why this is a recommendation in the report?
So when we were looking at ways, so City of Star does have a police training facility, and it just so happens to be, in Ada County, if you will. But it is the place where your police go get trained. It is a 38,000 square foot entity that they provide, and you're right, it is provided by the Ada County Sheriff's Office that you have a contract with, as well as your staff is contracted through them as well, right? But you pay for that service, and as you saw in the letter from the sheriff, the current usage of that facility, it's not only used by STAR, it's used by Ada County and a whole bunch of other municipalities that also have a very similar agreement with the Ada County. It's becoming a challenge to be able to get everybody the training that they need at the level that they need it. And as the sheriff has indicated, more training facilities would be helpful, because currently and looking into the future, it's going to continue to be a challenge, especially as we add new officers. So if we are looking at the growth and the growth related to basically doubling your police force in the next 10 years, so is everybody else around us, right? They're also getting bigger. So that facility is going to be a challenge for your folks to be able to get trained. And you're going to need, it is a requirement for them to, not only just out of schooling, but annually. So you do have a facility that you use, and it is a level of service that you're currently providing. So when we're looking at how we come up with a way to calculate that, right? We looked at a couple different things. We did look at calculating it by square footage. The current facility that you use is 38,000 square foot. You're looking at a 25,000 square foot, a plan for one. So therefore, when we did the calculations for square footage, it came out like, well, then you can pay for it 100%, right? Because you don't need as much as what you're currently using. And when we talked internally, we thought that it would be better. It's kind of like, well, how do you calculate the need for this kind of a space? Because if you're going to need a training facility, you need everything in it, right? Because whether or not you're not going to add necessarily the combat room, if you will, in 5 years. You need it now because that's part of what they need in training. So the whole facility kind of comes together, if you will. Not to say that I suppose you couldn't add like, a driving thing, which is not included in this. So when we were calculating, we looked at square footages, and then we settled on, why don't we look at the percentage of how much we're going to grow our police, which is, 51.39% basically. It's going to be growing in the next 10 years. And that's what we used as a metric for a level of service of how to calculate going forward, what would be impact fee related. Did that answer your question?
It helps me understand where you're coming from. I'm not sure that I agree that STAR has a training facility today. I think, the fact that Ada County provides that facility, that other municipalities use it, that contracted facilities and agencies that maybe not are contracted but still use that facility, pay to use that facility. There's a reasonable expectation under our contract that if that facility is insufficient based on growth, because we are paying for that contract, that Ada County will continue to expand their facilities in order to provide the adequate, square footage and equipment and things like that are needed.
Councilman Nielsen, I'm going to come back to a discussion on that part here in just a minute.
Okay.
That's okay.
Can I jump
But
in here?
I want to have Councilman Wheelock real quick.
Okay.
If you got a minute here, I've got two-part question for me. I'd jump on that, with the current model. I do feel like we're paying for a training facility, or unless they lower our cost of service for officers trained, and we train them ourselves, but that doesn't fit in our model that we're currently using. I would tend to agree with Councilman Nielsen that is being funded by Ada County and will continue if we keep paying our officers to be prepared to come work in STAR. I want to go back to the stepping of the fees. That was probably one of the highlights for me of all the testimony tonight. Is what does that look like? Is that a figure we can calculate to say we're going to go 70, 80, 100, whatever? And how does that affect the funds that are produced by that? So that we're giving a transition to the development community. I understand we're behind. I agree with that earlier also. But what's a transition look like? Because in 30 days, we're different than we were today. If we can give a heads up, not necessarily all at once, but we have, the development community looks in 18 months, 4 years, whatever they look at to fund their projects. How do we blend that with our changing of our fees? What does that soften and show that we're trying to meet them in the middle? That would be my question. How do we do that?
You want to take a stab? Or you want
Yeah,
me
I
to
can
stab?
take a stab. Sure.
Okay.
So certainly my job is to help you figure out what is the max supportable fee. You get to decide how you want to implement those, whether it be the whole fee, a smaller fee, a gradated fee. That is something that you get to choose. I can certainly help you figure out what that means for cash flow for projects. So if it was something that you said, okay, well, we're going to do, 90, 80, 70, whatever over the last 3 years, or the next 3 years, certainly that's a calculation. I wouldn't be able to, I can do it on my calculator. I'm on my laptop in a minute, but not right here, standing here. I can't calculate that. But certainly, yes, you can do that. And we would be able to give you that number I can probably give it to you tonight for sure, what that could look like. Because to your point, you would be accumulating less for a little bit, and that would take longer to save. And so you have to think about, you have 8 years to spend out your funds, and it's going to take you some time. You saw there's a cash flow analysis in your report, and you can see it takes a couple years before you get any money to be able to do something, right? But again, it's first in, first out. So, you know, the fees that you spend or that you take in, you're going to spend on your the projects that you have the match for, if you will, the city funds for. And so, you know, likely you'll be planful and not make sure you don't have to give funds back.
That, to me, that's why we're starting talking in the 70, 80, 90, or
So let me.
instead
let
of
me-
30, 60, 90.
Let me throw my couple cents in here based on conversations that have been had. Real quick on the police side of it, when we're talking about the training center, I know that's been a question from the BCA on there and a question from you guys, and I think that probably needs to be defined more. With that said, we can remove and I got the numbers, you can remove the training center from the CIP together, and it'd be 13, it goes from 1321.65 down to 680.88 for the police impact fee on residential, and 31 cents per thousand or per square foot on non-residential from 60. So then to go into what Councilman Wheelock was talking about, if you did a 3-year step, an 80, 90, 100. Our parks impact fees, what we're proposing currently is 58, 69, 70. The first year at 80% would be 46, 95, 76. The second year would be at 90% at 52, 82, 73. And the third year, you'd be paying the full on there. I would suggest that you do not step the police fees because that is an essential service that you're going to need the stuff on right away, right? And with 389 issues that we have on being able to fund capital improvement stuff, there's no way to fund that. On the park stuff, we can get away with breaking that down just a little bit on there and gradually stepping that in on that 2-year process that it seems like that gets talked about, in my opinion. But we do have a number here. If you were to remove that, again, the police training center, which I firmly believe that should be included, but I totally get it, that there's questions on it. And so we could define that even more and see what that looks like. We could always bring it in next year. I mean, we don't have to wait 5 years. You know, we could define it and look at it, work with the BCA, see what is acceptable, work with the sheriff's office, all that kind of stuff, kind of define that a little more. And that would drop it down to $680.88 from $1,321.65 on the residential side. So,
Mayor Chadwick,
Councilman Nielsen.
that feels reasonable. So I appreciate you being prepared with that. You know, I'm also, to your point about we don't have to wait 5 years. You know, maybe we choose just to adopt a lower rate. And then, you know, we have the impact fee committee reconvenes in November and we can look at it again next year. I'm not opposed to the stepped version. You know, we could do that too and look at that again. I do see that, I know we have a lot of lots that are approved. I think probably small builders are not sitting on lots for a long time, like some of the larger builders are.
It's a combination.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, honestly. I'm just guessing. I'm trying to think of the little guy and how this impacts them.
Well, the little guy's still selling that house at $660,000.
Right.
It doesn't matter
No,
who it is.
that's a great point. And when you look at these fees, you know, I don't think the median price is 600 grand, but let's say it's 500 grand. You know, we're talking 1%.
Less than 1%.
So that could be, yeah, anyway, I'm done.
My opinion is you don't adjust your parks down. We're adjusting the police down. You stair step the parks to allow that. And I totally get it. But it will get into that 100%. And then we could always review. And every year, that's the point of the impact fee committee, is to look at everything and see if we need to make a change, you know, based on what's happened. Did we get some massive donations, right? Did we the growth completely stop or slow down, whatever, and then we could take a look at that time on all that.
From my point of view, if we stair step the park, adjust the police and look at it every year, like it is intended to look at, that meets the middle of both worlds to me better than anything I've heard.
Yeah. Mayor Chow.
Councilman Nielsen.
So a question for you. We're almost to deliberation up here. If we stair step these, I guess this question really comes back to the heart of your analysis when it comes to the fees. I know that these are intended to be looked at on a regular basis, but really, on a 5-year basis. So we've adopted the median growth rate. We're looking at the maximum fee. Does that maximum fee kind of anticipate that over 5 years we get a certain amount, or does it anticipate that we get a certain amount upfront based on the projects that we have? Where does that? I guess it's kind of a cash flow question. Based on our projects that we have, do we need cash flow up front, or do we need cash flow later down the road? Because that would really determine whether or not we can afford to do a stair stepping program right now.
That's a good question. And so so for each one, there is a cash flow analysis done. And, we did some, it's a pretty high level one. And we did some calculations to say, well, by this amount, by this date-ish this year, you'll have enough to do some things, right? It does anticipate that you would get all of your impact fees to do all of your planned projects. Now, your planned projects are for 10 years, from now to 10 years, basically. You have to redo this in 5. And if you don't spend all your money, you have to give it back in 8. So it's already kind of got a built-in, check on your cash flow. So it isn't necessarily like you're not going to get a bunch in the first year that you'll be able to do anything with. You're going to have to wait a couple years for our analysis till there's a substantial amount of money to buy land or to build something, or so it will prolong it a little because there'll just be less money coming in. But it's I don't know. I don't want to say it's unlikely that you'll get all your projects done in 10 years, but it could be.
So, Councilman Nielsen, just to we have a 6-year average of 768 building permits per year. But if we go down to 600, just at 600, let's say the economy starts slowing down with everything, the inflation that we got going on, you would still, on a stair step, you would collect $2.8 million in 1 year in park impact fees. And that's substantial in purchasing property and stuff like that, or doing improvements on different parks. Not improvements, but building out a park, right? Greening it up and things like that. Do you want all? Sure, I would take all of it if we can, but it's entirely up to you guys on how you decide if the stair step is the method based on the conversations you've heard tonight, or if we take all of it up front. Okay, any questions for Christy further? Councilman Day, Wheelock? All right. Miss Christie, you're done. It's 10:38. We're gonna close the public hearing and go to council deliberations and comments and whatnot.
Let's go save it first. This was fascinating. Basically, just the whole process here has been fascinating. From what I hear, we have the big, we have one side saying that we can't use the leased properties, and then we have another side saying that we can.
And you have your legal counsel saying you.
Yes, exactly. Right. I'll just tell everyone, we're in deliberation. I will just say, I haven't heard anything that has convinced me that we cannot. So would others agree with that? Or anybody think otherwise? Because I think that that number, right, including that leased facilities in our level of service currently, then leads down the line of what the end impact fee is. And so we got to make sure we're on the same page of including all of these projects that we have, or all of these items. What I have looked in the analysis, I think that they all, I'm in agreement with all of the things in there. So does anybody have something that they don't agree with?
More deliberation, emotions.
Yeah.
Mayor Chadwick,
Councilman Nielsen.
I'll answer your
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
No, you may not be surprised to discover that I agree. Look, I've asked a lot of questions to try to really understand where people are coming from, and really to keep myself open to being convinced of whatever arguments are being made. And like you, Jen, or Councilwoman Salmonson, I don't find a reason that in Idaho code that we can't use leased. I don't find a definition of a unit of measurement or a specification of a particular unit of measurement. Therefore, however the city chooses to reasonably measure their level of service, it's more about the service and accurately measuring than it is about the particular measure that you use.
Okay, any further comments over here on the right? Councilman Day, Councilman Wheelock?
Mayor Chadwick. Yeah, I'd be in agreement with two colleagues that there's nothing in Idaho Code 67-8206 that cannot use leased at all. I don't see it in there. So I haven't heard anything that would change my mind on that legally. I know the gentleman brought up some case law, but I think that's probably irrelevant to what we're doing today. The gentleman from Launch. I say we follow Idaho code, city code. That's what matters most to Idahoans and the people of Star. That's all I have to say on that.
Okay, any further comments? No, you don't have to have one. We can take a stab at a motion. Whatever you guys want to
Mayor
do.
Chadwick, I'll just also add that just to explain like where I'm coming from, because I am like aware that these extra fees, they do get passed on to the homeowner, and it can affect, whether or not some people can get a house or not. And so we don't make that decision lightly about increasing these fees. So, I guess another question that I had about what type of items that we're including in here was about the police cars. And do they truly have a 10-year lifespan? So can they be called capital equipment? And I think tonight I was shown that, yes, they can be. We have, there's a number of other cities that they do include it in their plan, and they are expected to be used for 10 years. So that was just another question that I had coming into this tonight, which I had answered, and I feel like it was answered. And so I am comfortable with approving it. And also about the training facility. I had a question, you know, just kind of explaining where I'm coming from. I had a lot of question about the training facility. You know, like whether or not it should be included. And I'm happy to hear what I heard tonight. And I think we have a good proposed answer if that is the motion that is made. So I think that's where I'll leave it right now.
Mayor Chadwick.
Councilman Nielsen?
So if we're looking at a stepped plan, I know it's been proposed 70, 80, 90 over 3 years. Is that
80, 90, 100.
80, 90, 100? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and make a motion here.
Do you want the dollar amounts for the 80, 90, 100?
Do I need him?
I would put them in there. I think we do because we're going to have to adopt, when we do the ordinance, you're going to have to put those amounts in there and what they are going to need to be.
Okay.
When we come to the ordinance.
Correct. The ordinance does have the numbers in it.
Yeah.
I think for purposes of the motion, I mean, as long as we know what the 80, 90, 100% are, we can do the math.
Do the math.
Put it in the ordinance if we need to, but if we have it ready, then we can include it. That's totally fine.
Because I have the 80, 90.
Okay. What's the 80?
The 80 is 4695.76.
What's the 90?
5282.73.
And the 100
is the 5869.70. And then the police is 680.88 without the training center and 31 cents per square foot for non-residential.
All right. So I find that the proposal without the training center is consistent with Idaho code and consistent with the comprehensive plan, the city of Star. I know that, I mean, I've been on this council for 10 years and it's been a long time since we've raised fees in this city. I think that we deliberately try to keep things as low as reasonably possible and still meet the needs of our city. I appreciate the work that was done by our committee and the people that showed up. This has been a process that's been over a year in the making, publicly noticed and available for everybody who wanted to be involved. And I appreciate the involvement. I appreciate the commitment also of the city and of our committee and others to remain involved and to not wait 5 years, but to engage again immediately in this year. So with those findings and again with removing that training facility, I move to approve this CIP in the amount of $680.88 per resident for police impact fee, 31 cents per square foot non-resident police impact fee, and adopt a graduated scale for parks impact fees over 3 years at 80, 90, and 100%, 80% being $4,695.76 in the first year, $5,282.73 in the second year, and 3 years in perpetuity, $5,869.70.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Happily, I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Nielsen and a second by Councilman Wheelock. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Day,
Aye.
Wheelock,
Aye.
Selman,
Aye.
Nielsen.
Aye.
Okay, that motion carries. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on then to the action items, which we do have to approve the ordinances for these. First of all, we need to start off with, I want to go to item 8B and have you table that indefinitely for me, which was the pathway impact fee ordinance. Do we need to table? We do need to table that because it's a, yeah, all right. Can someone table that for me?
Mayor Chadwick, move to table item 8B, ordinance 432-2026, impact fees for pathways.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Nielsen, a second by Councilman Day. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Day,
Aye.
Wheelock,
Aye.
Simonson,
Aye.
Nielsen.
Aye.
Okay, that motion carries. All right, we're on the third reading for item A, the ordinance for the capital improvement plan development impact fee for parks. When you do the parks, we want to put in the amounts that we set on the graduated steps. So we need to read that ordinance or that, the title.
Mayor Chadwick,
Councilman Nielsen.
yeah, I've got those numbers. I'll go ahead and do that.
And we don't have to suspend the rules.
No, we're not suspending the rules because this is the third reading. Yeah, the suspending of the rules is when you don't have to read it the first and second time. And we're reading it by title only.
And tonight we're also making
You're
not
making a
just
motion
reading.
to approve the ordinance with that fee structure that you have there.
So-
Mr. Mayor?
You want
Yeah,
to?
Councilman, oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I think the motion would just be a motion to approve the ordinance after reading once by title only, or after reading by title only, just to make.
Oh, make the motion.
clear that
Okay,
we aren't-
so make a motion to read the ordinance by title only.
Okay.
First.
Mayor Chadwick,
Councilman Nielsen?
I move that we read this ordinance number 431-2026 by title only.
Okay.
Second.
Chris? Okay, we got a motion. We got a second?
Yep, second.
Okay, we got a motion by Councilman Nielsen and a second by Councilwoman Simonson. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Day,
Aye.
Wheelock,
Aye.
Simonson,
Aye.
Nielsen.
Aye.
Okay, that motion carries. Now it's on to approve the ordinance, reading it by title only and providing for the dollar amounts to be inserted in there.
Mayor Chadwick, I move that we approve ordinance number 431-2026 and ordinance of the city of Star, Ada, and County, Idaho, adopting a park impact fee, providing for the imposition, computation, and payment of said fee, providing for the establishment of an impact fee fund, providing for exemptions, refunds, credits, and waivers of the impact fees, adopting general provisions, providing for appeals, and providing an effective date.
With these amounts.
With these amounts, at 80% in the first year, $4,695.76. At 90% in the second year, $5,282.73. And 100% in the third and following years, $5,869.70.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Nielsen and a second by Councilwoman Simonson. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Day,
Aye.
Wheelock,
Aye.
Simonson,
Aye.
Nielsen.
Aye.
Okay, that motion carries. So we'll move on to item 8C. We need to make a motion to read this by title only as well.
Mayor Chadwick.
Councilwoman Simonson.
Motion to read ordinance number 433-2026 by title only.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Day,
Aye.
Wheelock,
Aye.
Simonson,
Aye.
Nielsen.
Aye.
Okay, that motion carries. Now we need to approve the ordinance with the new fee amounts that you guys approved for police and excluding, and I would state excluding the training center.
Mayor Chadwick,
Councilman Nielsen.
I move that we approve ordinance number 433-2026, an ordinance of the city of Star, Ada, and County, Idaho, adopting a police impact fee, providing for the imposition, computation, and payment of said fee, providing for the establishment of an impact fee fund, providing for exemptions, refunds, credits, and waivers of the impact fees, adopting general provisions, providing for appeals, and providing an effective date, with a modification that we remove the police training center from consideration, resulting in a fee per resident per residential unit of $680.88 and per square footage of non-residential construction, 31 cents.
Okay, per square foot, right?
Yes.
You said that, okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Was that you, Mr. Day?
Yeah.
Okay. We have a motion by Councilman Nielsen and a second by Councilman Day. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Day,
Aye.
Wheelock,
Aye.
Simonson,
Aye.
Nielsen.
Aye.
Okay, that motion carries. All right, we're going to move on to item 4D, the ordinance for the Longbow subdivision. We do need to suspend the rules on this one. So someone's got the sheet up there to suspend the rules for this one. Okay,
Mayor Chadwick,
Councilman Nielsen.
I move to introduce ordinance number 430-2026 and that pursuant to Idaho Code Section 50-902, the rule requiring an ordinance to be read on 3 different days with one reading to be in full be dispensed with, and that this ordinance number 430-2026 be considered after reading once by title only.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second by Councilman Day and a motion made by Councilman Nielsen. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Aye.
Aye.
Solomon.
Aye.
Nielsen.
Aye.
Okay, that motion carries. Thank you. On to item 8E, we need to suspend the rules on this one as well.
Mayor Chadwick, we now have to read the
Read it.
ordinance.
Gotta read
Oh, I'm
this one.
sorry. Jumped ahead. I'm sorry. Now we need to, we need to go to ordinance D and approve it.
And somebody else can read it if they want to.
Mayor Chadwick.
Councilwoman Solomon.
All right, I move that we approve ordinance number 430-2026, Longbow subdivision rezone. Ordinance rezoning certain real property located in Star, Ada County, Idaho, more specifically located at the southeast corner of West Broken Arrow Road and North Pollard Lane, Star, Idaho. The property is owned by Timberwolves Holdings, establishing the zoning classification of the rezoned property as residential district with a development agreement R2DA and neighborhood commercial district with a development agreement of approximately 7.78 acres. Directing that certified copies of this ordinance be filed as provided by law, providing for related matters and providing for an effective date.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Councilwoman Solomon, a second by Councilman Wheelock. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Day.
Aye.
Wheelock.
Aye.
Solomon.
Aye.
Nielsen.
Aye.
Okay, that motion carries.
Sure.
We need to suspend it on the rules on 8E as well.
All right, Mayor Chadwick,
Councilwoman Solomon.
move to introduce ordinance 436-2026, and that pursuant to Idaho, am I wrong? Okay, and do I need to wait? Okay. That and pursuant to Idaho Code Section 50-902, the rule requiring an ordinance to be read on 3 different days with one reading to be in full be dispensed with, and that ordinance number, there we go,
436.
436-2026, be considered by reading once by title only.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Councilwoman Solomon, a second by Councilman Wheelock. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Day.
Aye.
Wheelock.
Aye.
Solomon.
Aye.
Nielsen.
Aye.
Okay, that motion carries. Now we can approve the ordinance.
Anyone else? Oh, boy. Daytime? Okay, I'm going to go and we'll get it over with. All right, Mayor Chadwick, I move to approve ordinance number 436-2026, 10040 West State Street annexation. An ordinance annexing to the city of Star certain real property located in the unincorporated area of Ada County, Idaho, more specifically at 10040 West State Street, Ada County parcel SO 4084388955, and contiguous to the city of Star. Property is owned by Northwest Development Companies, LLC, establishing the zoning classification of the annexed property as Central Business District with a development agreement TBD-DA of approximately 0.93 acres. And directing that certified copies of this ordinance be filed as provided by law, providing for related matters and providing for an effective date.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilwoman Solomon, a second by Councilman Wheelock. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Day.
Aye.
Wheelock.
Aye.
Solomon.
Aye.
Nielsen.
Aye.
Okay, that motion carries. Thank you. Then we need a motion to go into executive session per what it says on the paper.
Mayor Chadwick, move that we go into executive session for Idaho Code 2061C to consider interest in real property not owned by a public agency.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilwoman Solomon, a second by Councilman Wheelock. Any further discussion? Hearing
Ma-
none, roll call.
Mayor Chapwick,
Councilman Nielsen?
can we have like a 3 to 5 minute break?
We can, yeah. We'll go into executive session and have the break and get everybody out too at that point. Okay, roll call.
Day,
You got your
Aye.
phone?
Wheelock,
Aye.
Solomon,
Aye.
Nielsen.
Aye.
Okay, we are going to go into an executive session at 11:05. Hey, thank you guys. Appreciate it. Thanks for hanging out.